not know that we're in New York?
Oh, yeah. Recording now officially.
Oh, are we recording?
I can't hear
recording
you.
now?
Flavius,
Yeah,
you're
you're on mute.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I asked if it was okay if we started recording.
Well,
Okay. Hi,
You
Flavy.
Hey, how's it
Yeah.
going?
and no one responded because no one heard you.
Right,
here.
that is true. I thought we had the mental. Oh, I forgot. It's only me and Sam that have that mental connection that way.
Yeah.
Oh, what
We can read
mental
each other's
connection is that?
thoughts.
What
You know,
mental connection?
the mental connection. The
Yeah.
you know.
Like I know, like yes, like I know, like I communicate with you telepathically when I want you to start
Telepathically.
recording.
Teleacceptance.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with telekinesis.
Right. It's
Which is
Professor.
moving-
Well,
Right. It's
Moving
Professor
things
X
with your
versus
minds.
Professor X versus Jean Grey.
Right.
Yeah.
well, I only have the telepathic connection.
Well, all men do have
KD,
tel-
apparently, 'cause I can
all men
predict
do
what
have
he's doing.
telekinetic powers, but we won't speak on that. Right.
Oh God. Okay. That's funny.
It's okay. It's all right.
That's funny.
We'll wait until Ish gets here.
Is he coming?
Oh, I don't know. You got me. So what's
there you
good?
go.
So your name's Matt. Hey, what's up, Matt?
What's up? How you
All
doing?
right. Friends with Damien?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. We figured we'd try you out tonight and see how it goes. We'll give you a little trial
I'm with
run.
it.
It's also a
Yeah,
trial
see how
for
I like it.
Damien. It's also a trial for Damien to see how his tastes are.
I'm always on trial.
See how his
Recommendations.
tastes and friends are.
Yeah.
All right. I'll do my best.
So have folks been, I guess folks have probably been checking out the news. You know, sometimes like I don't find out what's going on until I hear it from other people. And I was on a call with some union folks today, and I kind of found out some of the news that's been going on, but it was well, I won't say much more than that for union reasons, but it was just interesting finding out the information, you know, from other folks and having to play catch up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of find myself in that situation a lot more recently.
Yeah.
Did the news by chance have to do with a union that does a similar job as me?
The union was the way that I got the information. It didn't have to do with the news itself. The news was about Kenosha and what's going on in Wisconsin.
Oh.
Yeah, I ended up watching a couple of different videos. The first video I saw was very short, but I ended up finding a compilation video that went through several angles and detailed some of the event. It was actually a pretty messy event in general, deep tragedy, no matter how you want to cut the cake, really. Really strange interpretation of law, but ultimately, you know, I saw just recently that he's set up to be on trial for murder. So that's definitely set into motion. And, you know, it really puts to question, though, the gun ownership laws of a 17-year-old, especially with an assault rifle. That, you know, across the board, no matter what opposing view I spoke to, was something that kind of, you know, rang true, no matter how you want to look at it. Is you have a 17-year-old with an assault rifle. So,
Now, were the people that got killed, were they protesters or who were they?
interesting distinction, right? Protesters and rioters can be hard to distinguish sometimes, much like the many different bacterias in our body, where some are good for us and helpful, and some are not so helpful and don't represent our body.
And some are found in Activia.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so in other words, he killed people that were out in the streets, like as a result of everything that's been happening.
Right, and I'll share the video to be clear with what I saw, so you know what I'm talking about if we add it to the comment section for anything with this video. But what ends up happening earlier on is there is a conflict of interest between business owners who are protecting their storefront and potentially rowdy rioters, but peaceful protesters separate themselves from the rowdy rioters, if you will.
Well, that's what happened in New York too.
Yeah, they
like
literally-
during the George Floyd protest.
Yeah, peaceful protesters cross to the other side of the street in a
Okay.
fairly organized fashion, while some unorganized rioters begin stirring up or provoking conflict with the very well-armed store owners or people representing the store owners. And across from those people are very well-armed police officers with the vehicles known as the Bearcats, or the otherwise well-armored vehicles that are designed
And
to
so,
handle fire.
and so the 17-year-old, was he down with one of these factions?
You know, that's what
I
I
mean-
was unable to identify.
Or no, sorry, the shooter. Yeah, the 17-year-old, the shooter.
Well, the shooter was
Shooter is-
pro-cop, like he was like a cop in training or something.
Well, they say aspiring to be a cop, so it is very questionable, some of his involvements that need to be looked further into. The only information I could truly confirm was he was there earlier that day. You know, this wasn't his hometown. He was there earlier that day, and he was helping remove and or clean graffiti off of a local courthouse wall. And there's some pictures of him doing it, so it's widely confirmed. And later on that day, he is helping represent the defense of residents. But there are some complications involved with his claims of home defense and helping local residents. One of the issues is he had no non-lethal means of deterrence, which is to say he only came there with lethal means.
Right.
So this now...
Yeah, he came there AK-47.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you would have had to have had some non-lethal measure to claim home defense.
Where did he live?
I'm not sure the exact residence, but it was said to be 20 odd miles away from the area. So
Okay.
far enough away where he had to travel. It doesn't say how he got there, if he drove himself.
Mhm.
It was suggested that he was there with a friend. You know, there's some speculation still in the air. Mostly what I confirmed was from the videos of the event itself and that one picture prior to the event. You know, something to note is he doesn't seem to have any political intention or mentions anything about a faction or a feeling. But it is also mentioned in some of the information 2 weeks prior, he was at a Trump rally,
Yeah.
as
I heard
a
about that.
VIP. So it does seem that he has some political allegiance in that department.
A
to say the least.
VIP.
And was he arrested?
In fact, he was peaceably arrested after the fact. In the video, you can see he attempts to turn himself in right away to one of the Bearcat vehicles, which drives past him in the direction of the injured people. And then he tries to hand himself into the second Bearcat, which then also drives past him. And then he makes it up to a third vehicle, which was a basic squad car. And that's where the video cuts off. But they say later that night he was arrested, and they do mention peacefully. So
what I heard was one of the people at the demonstration tried to turn him in, and they were asking the cops why they weren't arresting him, and the cops were saying something like, "We didn't see the video," or something like that, and they were like, "He just shot someone." And that's the only.
What
That's the only
video
thing
do
I
you
heard.
need to
Yeah,
see?
because they really need to. Yeah, because they need to see so much evidence before they shoot a black guy. I'm like,
Right.
F out of here.
yeah, there definitely seemed to be a slanted bias there. I mean, the kid was armed. One of the things to consider in this situation is police were concerned with the very heavily armed storefront protectors and the very provocative rioters. So police were more concerned with what they thought was going to be the front lines of a conflict
Right.
when the real conflict happened maybe, let's say, about 100 yards back behind that front line. So it's a curious event that seemed to have some premeditated measures to it. In fact, some of the earlier occurrences of the video where he identifies not having a non-lethal means of defense, he had reported being sprayed with pepper spray or mace, and an EMT or a medical unit did come to him. And I wonder in this moment why the EMT didn't identify, okay, here's a 17-year-old with an assault rifle. Maybe I should get some further assistance back behind this front line to address a potential hazard.
But you're saying he shot people
Just took
after?
a badly.
He shot
It
people
might be
after pepper spray and after a failed Molotov cocktail device or whatever was thrown at him. So he took flack from two different sources prior to the escalation, but I should mention that was one of his first victims that he shot, was someone who had been a part of a group that threw some flaming device that did not explode and did not cause any damage, but put him in a panic where he took cover behind a vehicle and was rushed by 3 other people, one of which he shot. And when that person went down, that's when he makes his first break towards the street again. It is.
And he's got his weapon flashing the whole time?
Yes, he's had his weapon brandished the entire time. It's what he thought would act as a deterrent, I suppose.
It was basically strapped to his chest, if I recall.
Yes, and strapped to his body, absolutely. And he did seem to have some equipment, which suggests maybe reloads or rounds or intent more. That's part of his legal defense issue here, is trying to claim himself as a home defender doesn't really line up with his equipment check. He had an assault rifle and he was well armed for urban combat. It was not.
Plus, home defenders are usually defending their own homes.
Correct. Another
Yeah,
point.
And that
like
home's 20 miles
away
out
from
from
their
out.
homes.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yes, another very serious point to consider on how this case gets handled. And objectively speaking, the facts are there.
Did there seem to be any division between the homeowners and the people? Were there any racial lines at all between homeowners and the demonstrators? And was there any situation where it looked like the people who were escalating might have been people from outside of the area, they've been accused of in other protests?
You mean by the rioters?
It seems like
themselves or the
That
homeowners
17-year-old was
themselves?
exactly that person.
Wait, what's that?
It seems like the 17-year-old in question was
Was
exactly that person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was asking 2 questions, Damien.
Yeah,
If
it
there
was
seemed to be any racial division between the homeowners and the protesters, i.e., the 2 white folks who, ended up shooting some black folks who were invited to the RNC to speak. And then my second question was, did it seem like the rioting came from outside agitators?
Yeah, I mean, from what the videos demonstrated, it seems like the agitators themselves were not part of the peaceful protest, and in fact were a separate group, which at one point identified themselves as Antifa, according to one of the peaceful protesters, who did not subscribe to being a part of Antifa so much as they were there to represent the BLM or Black Lives Matter issue. The homeowners I did not see them in the video, and they were not referenced in the Vice article I read through. But we could surmise that there very well could have been a racial barrier or difference or distinction between the homeowners and some of the protesters. But here's the thing, is that it's noted some of these Antifa rioters or provokers or agitators were white. A lot of them were
most
Caucasian looking.
most Antifa are.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's nothing new.
as far as the people that were shot and killed, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, 2 of them for sure I identified are Caucasian as well.
Mhm.
One of which did draw or brandish a pistol which is also strange. I mean, if you look at the escalation factors, you know, I mentioned before the pepper spray and the Molotov failed cocktail that was thrown. There's also the moment where he is jump kicked in the head on the ground, hit with a skateboard on the ground, and he's also held under duress by the pistol drawn. Now, all of this happens very fast, and none of this is right. Every step and measure of this, in my opinion, is wrong. There was no right way to have handled this. The right way would have been preventing it. And
we also don't know that this is quote unquote Antifa either, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, there's nothing that truly identifies or indicates that except for the person who's originally videotaping it and separates the peaceful protesters from the not peaceful protesters. So now, right, Antifa kind of becomes this strange, and I don't want to call it an umbrella, but I know actually Matt was talking about it, how Antifa being identified as a terrorist organization becomes problematic because anybody could be considered anti-fascist.
It's the same thing they do with BLM. They blame anytime there's black, protesters or someone demonstrating and something happens, they just use an umbrella term.
Or they just blame the victim.
Yeah.
Of course. Like that's actually something that goes back to the like Nazi playbook, is like the Jews are simultaneously a bunch of wishy-washy, effeminate people, and they're not, they're beneath our notice, but at the very same time, they're running the shit. There's this weird dichotomy that goes into that, which is
whatever fits.
They're simultaneously, they're not a threat, but they are also what's wrong with the world. So it's like
they're
running
threat,
both of
they're
those
also
lines at the same time, like it's a classic fascist playbook move.
Yeah. I've seen the same thing done to immigrants. Like, they're lazy, but they're taking all of our jobs. That's like, which one is it?
It's like,
I'm saying I work landscaping. Like nobody took my job.
Things, so it's like these are dueling ideas. So pick one.
Yeah.
Yeah, if only. Well, they pick whichever one is convenient in the moment.
Sure.
Like that's the
Yeah, that
of
sounds
cowards.
about right.
Now, I've seen some protests in the city before, and in some other areas, going a while back. Not even entirely sure what the demonstrations were representing, but in the city, especially with the union when demonstrations happen, there's an identified area or zone for demonstrators. This way, there is a means to separate demonstrators from agitators.
Oh, you mean the free speech zone?
Correct. They said a zone. I was very resistant and reluctant to it. I felt that it defeated the purpose of the demonstration, which may have well been to create a disruption in the usual flow of things, but they do it off to the side of the sidewalk so that the demonstrators are not obstructing, consumers or tourists or whatever other, people are around. But when I've seen some other marches and some other demonstrations, police tend to line the streets. They tend to already be there, some even on horses, well armed, and it acts in some ways as a deterrent from some agitators, and in another way, demonstrators have said
what if they are the agitators, though? The police.
Right. Well, I mean,
what if that were the case? Imagine.
Police have, in some ways, played a role
that never
agitating
happens.
protesters. Yes. In fact, police on horses, sometimes making their way through a crowd, the horse ends up nudging up against protesters or pushing people into each other. In fact, perhaps one of the most famous moments with Local 3 in the organized labor protest is a horse that bumps into a drunk protester who turns around and punches the horse in the face. Of course, the horse is an officer, and so punching the horse in the face
assault on a police officer for punching the horse?
Which...
Oh, I'm sure he's still in jail.
Well, it's actually...
I feel like I've heard this story before.
It's the punch heard around the world. People, or at least around the unions, everybody has heard at some degree or another about this because it changed the face of Local 3's ability to organized demonstrations. In fact, we had to sign off on sanctions and injunctions that prevented us from actually reaching out in some creative ways that we used to. Even some protests where Local 3 would give free food to homeless people and then provide free drinks on the other side of a building and actually get people to walk through the building with their sandwiches to get the drinks as a means to protest the building, which was refusing to organize labor. That was one of my favorite protests. But we're not allowed to do that anymore after the guy who punched the horse, so...
And of course, I'm sure all the horses.
You ruined it for everyone.
I'm sure all the police horses is probably, joined forces and kicked the shit out of the guy who punched the horse.
Right, well, the horse being the majestic creature.
Oh, no
it
doubt.
is.
He's already dead.
Yeah, but the point being a little bit that the horse agitated the protester and turned the protester into the agitator because the mounted officer tried to make his way through a crowd. He simply could have just manned his post or went around the crowd. There was no reason for him to do that. So police have in some ways protected protesters, but in other ways agitated them. I suppose why I bring this up in the situation is I wonder if the police thought to protect the protesters from the agitators and were already in the street, could that have prevented these deaths? Or would it have agitated or escalated a worse situation?
Yeah. Well, the way they've been trained, we'll never know. It doesn't seem like they've been trained for proper de-escalation.
Okay. They do have non-lethal means to handle things, something to consider, which the, I want to say poorly trained 17-year-old did not. But I have to admit, after watching the video, though I don't really see him as the most athletic individual based on the way he was running, he did seem pretty well trained handling that assault rifle. I'll tell you, he was able to perform a little tuck and roll move after falling, and the way he got up and the way he fired those rounds were very precise. He was shooting that gun well before he was 17. If I had to guess, he may have been shooting that gun for 3 or 4 years prior to owning it, or a gun like it.
Mm-hmm.
I had read that it was actually an illegal gun, like that he wasn't supposed to have.
Well, the AR-15 as an assault rifle has been put to question. I don't know if it's been completely banned in Wisconsin. I know other states.
Well, no, but I mean, he possessed it illegally.
Right. Well, being
Unregistered.
17 already off the bat, is that the legal age for gun ownership? I don't think that works that way for assault rifles. It's also not mentioned, what kind of round clips did he have? What degree ammunition did he have? There's some things about the gun too that could be put to question that I didn't see any information on. But from the multiple angles,
It was a gun.
Yeah, it was
A gun with live rounds in it.
Yeah, lethal rounds. I mean, important
Yeah.
to note, lethal ammunition. It was a lethal weapon.
Well, cops are certainly using lethal weapons left and right. And even when they're using non-lethals, they're like blinding people with rubber bullets,
Yeah. I mean,
So again, they're not
Or giving
like,
people like cardiac arrest with the tear gas and every other thing.
Mhm.
right.
Or physically beating them to death.
Yeah.
Or taking them off into an unmarked van to be dealt with later.
Right.
And
Like
then
in
claiming
Portland.
that they're the warrant squad.
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't catch what
And
you
then
said.
claiming to be the warrant squad, but they're driven up in like a rented minivan.
Oh no, there's some like sub-military organization, like some offshoot of ICE or some shit that just has free reign.
Well, quite frankly, the only place that I think ice belongs is in my freezer, so
Good one. Yeah, what we don't want to see. If I were to, lay down some speculation in the future, is we don't want to see privatized security forces on the rise. And I think this is a good example as to why privatized security factions could become a problem and could lead to some other issues as far as identifying, the difference between, public servants or private sector security. This 17-year-old kid was acting as a privatized security force for a place that was not his home, so technically not his jurisdiction if we had to put
Well,
legal
for all
rhetoric.
intents and
Oh, it
purposes,
sounds like
he was
vigilante.
volunteering, right? It's
Yeah.
not like he was
He-
a part of a.
Keep in mind, he was
No,
originally
he was being a
volunteering
vigilante is what he
to
was doing.
Orale.
He was originally volunteering to clean the graffiti off of a courthouse. I mean, that was his original purpose being.
Well, what was the graffiti? Like, why was he volunteering? Like,
Right.
I wonder.
Which could link us to some of the other language that led him to the events that preceded as well. Who did he contact? How did he know? What groups was he a part of? What is his social media record like?
What is the meaning of all this?
Yeah.
What
nothing
is the
that-
meaning of life?
Well, yeah, that's life and death is certainly a part of, the discussion as to what happened and the value that was lost by the community in these events. Even the 2 days prior to the event, where rioters were said to have destroyed buildings and caused fires and looted, which is what escalated store owners and others to, rush to the defense of this town and have fully armed people all over that gas station. Again, I'll send the video just so you guys know, what I'm saying. But it's not that it matters too much, to be honest. The fact of the matter is that there are so many layers to how wrong this event is that unpacking it is, it's inevitable. We just don't want to see anything overlooked. It's a good chance for a public service to kind of step up and show like how valuable it is to have a public investigation, peel all of these layers apart, and apply all of the proper charges to exact justice, because there is such good footage. There are so many good angles. There's so much information available for them to work with here that this would be a case that's easy for them to dissect and get into.
But as of now, they're not sure if he acted alone or what his deal was.
Right. Everything.
They don't know what's going on, basically, any more than we do.
Right. We simply have to suggest that there was a guardian involved somewhere along the way. There was some assistance. The 17-year-old acting alone would require too much independent responsibility. The transparent accountability here suggests for sure that some parent or guardian was involved and that he has some association to some group or some factor at play here.
Well, I feel like that the parent or guardian, the parents must have I feel like the kid's not going to be at a Trump rally alone without his parents. The kid can't even vote.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks.
Never underestimate kids.
Yeah,
They're doing dumb shit.
No, believe me, I know kids do dumb shit. But what I mean
What,
is,
you forget?
he had to have gone. I mean, he had to have gotten the idea to be a Trump supporter from somewhere.
I agree with that.
Well,
online radicalization is a fucking thing.
Oh no, kids!
It's weirdly quiet, but if you spend enough time on the internet, you're gonna find yourself getting wrapped up in all kinds of bullshit without even fucking realizing it.
So you think it was more the internet and not so much the parents? What do you think?
Well, yeah, because the parents don't know what the fuck. I mean, I guess maybe I'm speaking only from my case, but my parents never knew what the fuck I was doing online. And
I don't think anyone's did.
Yeah, that was the point. We kept it that way, didn't we?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell if You know, I mean, if he's, you know, a military kind of trained person, maybe this is family business that he's into, and he's 17, maybe not. Like, you know,
Right.
I guess
Well,
we have no way of really knowing until information comes out. So it's all speculation.
That's true.
and again, just to speak to some of the logistics in the video breakdown, I mean, here's a 17-year-old with a high-powered assault rifle who fended off, you know, dealt with, I don't know if I want to say fended off, but dealt with a crowd of at least 20, 30 people throughout the video, 10 people actively attacking him in different ways, and 3 of the people that got so very close to him as to have gotten shot, these are adults, you know, these are young adults that, you know, one jumps up and kicks him in the head. I mean, that guy was easily 20, 30 years old. You know, and the other guy who hits him with a skateboard, again, late 20s, early 30s. And then the final guy who comes up with a phone and draws a pistol. I mean, these are fully grown adults. If they
So the question is, did they feel, you know, did they feel threatened by the 17-year-old with an AR-15?
Yeah, they were definitely threatened. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no doubt in my mind they were scared, but like they continued to provoke and agitate instead of forming a well-calculated strategy. Instead of, you know, like the first guy who kicked him in the head and the second guy who hit him with the skateboard, I mean, if these two people coordinated their attack instead of like running at him like, you know, uncoordinated, I don't even know how to describe their approach. They, you know, clearly, how often do you deal with an armed assailant like that?
Yeah, I mean, these are citizens. These aren't trained people, right?
Yeah, what I'm getting at a little bit is the 17-year-old had more training than this entire riot.
Right.
You know, so when we talk about like the internet or the parents, someone is involved here who trained this kid. This kid had a mentor.
Like a militia.
This kid had some training. He knew what he was doing more than these other people did, and his skill and experience, though it was misguided and horribly used, you know, and again, just to express the tragedy of lives lost, really for almost, you know, I don't want to say for no reason. There's always a reason and a purpose behind something, somewhere, somehow, but like we can't overlook the aspect of, well, just like my constant family values, communal equity point here is there were family values at play that allowed him to train this way, allowed him to develop this outlook, this mindset, this modality. There's some family value, even if it's not his biological family, there's some sense of family, some sense of mentorship that allowed him to develop those skills and hone them. And the lack of communal equity, the lack of community response to help guide him in a way where he could put his skills to some more productive or progressive use than to be out on the street murdering people by accident. Not by accident, he intentionally murdered them, but I don't think he really wanted to murder people. When you look at it, I really don't think he got in way over his head. He got involved with things that really did not involve him. He gave his power up to something way out of his control, and he's guilty as charged. He's a murderer. He needs to be addressed as such. The example needs to be set. And let me also point out, well, if he's a murderer and he's a soldier in this respect, he's a child soldier. And there's, like, if I'm not mistaken, a Geneva Convention against that. So whatever person trained him to be the soldier that he is should also be accountable in this case, I believe. If I had to throw, you know,
well, you don't know that they're going to use that definition. You don't know that definition is going to suffice for being a soldier.
Right.
I mean, he's you know, he could just be considered a wacko with a weapon, or he could be considered a part of a militia. Who knows? But I think soldier would imply something more.
More
I think that's
organized.
Stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like a militia, oh please.
Yeah.
But like a soldier is different.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Because now, if I'm not mistaken, there are in in Israel, when you turn 18, I believe, you train to be a part of the military as a part of a communal thing. Like that's a part of their community there. But they set an age of maturity for that training. And I do support the right to form a militia. And I think that people should be educated and trained on whatever technology is available for defensive purposes. And I just feel that this is a case where we see corruption of the youth at its finest, and where we can really stand to investigate and examine those factions of corruption. Like, what led this child to, this point. Like I'm saying, he didn't just pick that gun up that day and start shooting it. He was familiar with that weapon. In fact, I almost feel like he was more familiar with that weapon than he was familiar with his own hormonal developments. This kid is still developing as a person. So that to me kind of stands out as an interesting factor to this case, is again the transparent accountability of the upbringing and the people involved. Again, still holding him individually responsible for his actions, but understanding like there's a bigger picture here. And
yeah, he had to have gotten those ideas from somewhere.
Right, and the internet is definitely a good thing for sure to point out, but I just feel, the internet didn't give him the hands-on experience that he had prior to the event.
Yeah, they're going to be searching for his parents for sure, and maybe
the
for
internet
some
doesn't
group.
give anyone hands-on experience at anything. Just look at me trying to teach on the internet for months.
Yeah,
well, it's like anything, it takes practice.
It's called hands-on for a reason, right?
Yeah, you have to practice. You got to put your hands on it. Like I've no doubt that this dude had experience with weapons. Like he could load his own gun, and he had the strap to, put it on his chest and all that shit. Like he didn't not know what he was doing. Like
Someone
if he really didn't know what he was doing, he would never have showed up there with a gun in the first place. Like,
well, that is, I mean, people have done things like
actually,
that.
yeah, that's a good point.
But he seems to have, some knowledge. He seems to have some knowledge of
more than the lay person, I would say.
Yeah.
That's really all I'm trying to.
I don't think it was the first time that he picked up a gun. Let's put it that way.
Well, I wonder how long this is going to go on for. It's, it's one more reason to have people think about just the whole policing aspect in general and what it leads to. Just the root cause of the whole situation.
It's it's such a fascinating point, is that how this can be spun too is and first to point out, the trial will be expedited. Like it's being rushed.
Who you're talking about of this kid?
Yeah, with this kid, it was expedited to the 28th, I believe, was going to be the start of it. They pushed this as a high priority case.
What about the cops that were involved in the shootings?
They got put
You're talking about in the cases with Jacob Blake and the other cases, because those are not being expedited. That I did not hear about. In this case, this kid's case is being expedited, absolutely, and we know many other cases too involving police officers who are the instrument, of assault. When the officer is the one committing the crime, those cases are put way on the back burner. They're a low priority case. The officers are oftentimes, if I'm not mistaken, discharged or put on a leave of absence, or in extreme cases, I've seen some house arrest situations develop. It's an interesting thing to point out too. Like, here's a 17-year-old who, in the most craziest situation, way over his head, definitely had some corrupted youth aspects. His trial is getting expedited as quick as possible. But then you have officers out of an academy who were trained to handle situations to the fullest extent of their law and training, and they do something wrong. They overextend their qualified immunity, or whatever you want to call their snap judgments or misjudgments in that case, and their trials and their investigations are delayed and in many cases dismissed, we could say. So that kind of speaks a lot about the slant or bias in the law, and part of what we want to refund on. And as far as revamping the police and the academy and the training, the justice system itself has so many flaws and so many little loopholes that are designed to allow some of these situations to go on the way they do. And I think, that's something I really do like about the attention that we're seeing with the defunding or wanting a refund from a lack of service, is that the justice system itself is
not working.
It's failing to serve the people, and it's serving something other than the people. It's serving itself, the self-serving system that we've seen on many accounts, and definitely a driving point with the Black Lives Matter movement is that the self-serving nature of the justice system has contributed to the slant and the bias that we're seeing. Even if it's a problem in the field and something goes wrong, the bigger problem always ends up being in the courthouse, and how things that go wrong are oftentimes not handled appropriately or professionally.
Hey, what's up, Ish?
Howdy.
And then there was silence.
Hey, Ish, are you there?
Probably no. But I'm actually, one of my own personal cases, I'm getting a chance to expose some of the flaws in the justice system, and I've got a lot of good paperwork and even some recordings that go with it. But I'm constantly told by even the people representing me that I'm up against a much bigger battle than I could imagine. And that
yo, what up, everybody?
Hey, what's good?
What's going on?
All right.
Hey.
Hey, we got a new person in the house. Ish, I don't know if you can see based on who's speaking or what have you, but we have Matt Fitzgerald.
I can only see the speaker, but I'm not gonna have my headphones on for a couple of minutes because I actually just put them on. I'm gonna get in my car and ride to the store, but I'm gonna leave the Zoom on. So.
Oh, okay.
All right. Hi, yo, what up, everybody? I'm Ish. For those who don't know me,
I'm Fitzy. And
say
you probably
again?
don't know me.
What's your name again? What'd you say your name was?
Fitzy.
Fitzy. Hey, what's up, Fitzy? What up, Damien? What up, E?
What's up, Ish?
Howdy, Ish.
You go
I'll
by
be playing
Fitz?
the role of the only woman in the room tonight.
You go by Fitz?
She's a woman.
Yeah.
Last time I checked.
Fitzer, is it Fitzer or Fitz? What?
Fitzy.
Fitzy. Okay.
Yeah.
Fitzy. Cool.
Like
Do you live on Long Island as well?
I do.
Okay. What part?
The North Shore.
Oh, okay.
Port.
Are you new to Long Island?
No. I was raised. I'm born and raised in Riverhead, but I moved out here to Northport recently.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Long Island all my life.
Okay. Yeah, I've been out there a bunch of times. I used to work out there.
It's a fair enough town.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about it.
Yeah.
I like it, but it's fair enough. No matter what you say.
Yeah, it's got enough towns that if you don't like one town, you can check out another.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
you could get from the poorest to the richest out here on fucking Long Island. You go out to the Hamptons, Lord. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I
My
found
dad
out
used to work for
when-
UPS. He'd deliver for Elton John and shit.
yeah.
I found like working
Funny
in
shit.
Queens, everyone lives in Long Island that I work with anyway. So
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah,
technically
Queens
it's
is
all the
like
same, it's all
practically
the
part
same
of Long
island.
Island.
it's all
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yep. All the same island.
Oh yeah.
But what's Long Island has like what's it got like 5 million people or something like that, or is that right? Or is it
I
more?
can't say I've ever checked the numbers. I wouldn't be able
Okay.
to tell you.
I'll find
I
out.
could look it up if you want.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I know between New York City
Siri, what's the
Long
population
Island,
of Long
and there's
Island?
probably like 20 million people. So maybe Long Island's got like 10 million, or I can't remember.
Population of Long
Oh,
Island was 7,804,968.
700,000.
7 million.
7 million?
7,804,968.
Yeah.
Thank you, Siri.
And not everybody answers those census polls, by the way, so it could be more.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the case all around. So all
That's
all
true.
all populations could be more. It doesn't make Long Island more
Yeah.
than the more.
Oh yeah,
everybody
who
else
knows
is.
who's hiding out in the fucking Finger Lakes and shit.
Fingers up.
Yeah.
Hey, watch yourself. There's upstate flavor in this podcast.
Well, technically,
Oh
that's
no. I've made a
technically
faux
that's
pas.
Central New York, right? Is that actually Central New York, or is that actually
The
upstate?
Finger Lakes is technically central New York, I believe.
Yeah. See, no one.
Well, I'm
actually,
from Long Island. It's all upstate from here.
Well, for me, everything below Albany is downstate.
So we don't know
You know,
anyone
it's
who actually lives in
funny.
the real upstate.
I went to college with a dude who was from Niagara. That's all I got.
Niagara. Is that north of everything?
Yeah,
Oh
Niagara.
yeah, that's
Oh,
the
oh,
falls.
as in the falls.
Niagara Falls.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of it. I've never heard of it referenced as just Niagara.
You know, Buffalo.
Where do you live, actually?
I live in Sunset Park. I live in Brooklyn, but I grew up in Syracuse and lived in Buffalo for 9 years.
Oh, I went to school up by Buffalo.
Oh, okay.
Never heard of Niagara? No shit.
Well,
Smaller
yeah.
world, huh?
Well, Niagara Falls, not Niagara, unless
We
Niagara's
don't
like,
we
Well,
don't
that's
call,
the town.
we don't call it Niagara up here.
yeah,
No?
no,
The falls.
unless Niagara also happens to be a
Niagara's
county.
the name of the county, but we don't call it Niagara.
Yeah, unless you live in a small town next to Niagara Falls, and you're just telling people you live in Niagara County.
Well, what do you call Niagara Falls? Do you just say the falls?
No, we say Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls or the
But he-
falls.
Yeah.
He just said Niagara,
No.
so like my brain did not make the connection until he said Niagara Falls.
Niagara
I knew what he
Falls-
meant. I knew what he meant when he said Niagara, because Niagara, New York, it's the county, but up here we just don't call it Niagara.
Niagara Falls has the hydroelectric power to it. Does that power go out and is distributed to all of Niagara County, or is that just by the falls itself? I forget.
I don't
I
even
think
know that
it's-
the county. I don't even know that the county uses the hydroelectric plant to power itself. To
Really?
power the county. Yeah.
Wow.
But I think the
I don't know. It
hydroelectric
might
stuff
be though,
goes
because we have
east.
Niagara Mohawk. So just by the virtue of the name, they may.
Okay.
Like that's who powers everything around here is Niagara Mohawk.
Oh, don't say Niagara Mohawk. You're
Right,
gonna
but
give me
he's in a
nightmares.
different, but Ish is in a totally different county.
Yeah, I'm in Erie County.
Yeah, but it might be big enough that it powers both. I don't know.
I think it powers even further than that. Like I think.
Yeah, I know it. I know it goes out of Erie County, Mike.
Uh-huh.
Like
I
it's the
think
big.
even my mom gets power from the falls.
Yeah, NIMO's like huge around here. It could be the falls. I know the falls is responsible for a lot. Like they send water.
Actually,
all
yeah.
over
Now
the
that you mention it, I think when I grew up in Syracuse, I think that was also our source.
Well, it was definitely Niagara Mohawk was definitely our power company in Utica because I distinctively remember overhearing many angry phone calls to them because our
Niagara
power
Mohawk.
was out.
Niagara Mohawk is a far-reaching monster.
It's got all the tendrils.
Yes. And I'm assuming, without any known fact, that based on the name, it certainly probably gets power from the falls.
Right.
That seems like a safe bet.
Yeah. I know they send a lot of water. I say we because
The water.
it's hard for me to separate Niagara Falls from Buffalo because we're just so close.
I mean,
know
it's a 40-minute drive from what I understand. Like, it's really not that far away.
Buffalo? Niagara Falls isn't a 40-minute drive from Buffalo.
Oh no,
Yeah,
you're
it's
right.
gotta be less than
That's a
that.
different thing.
Especially where I'm
Oh
at.
no, I actually got it fucked up. It's
Well,
been a
yeah,
while.
it depends on where
Since
you.
I've been
Depends
up
on
in
what
there.
part you're.
It depends on what part of Buffalo. Like
Yeah,
I'm
what
on
part of
and where you're
Buffalo,
going.
part of the vault,
Like
yeah.
And the traffic.
It'll take me 15 minutes to get to casino. Like the Peace Bridge is right up the street.
But Ish
I'm
technically
literally
lives.
I'm literally standing 5 minutes from Lake Erie though. Like Niagara River runs right down the road.
But Ish lives in a suburb of Buffalo, so he's closer.
No, but I live on the border. I live on the border of Riverside. Like I can
Yeah.
walk to Riverside in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm literally like I do live in a suburb, but the suburb that I live in, it's Kenmore, Mike. So it might as well be Buffalo.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it literally where I live, that Kenmore might as well be Buffalo. It's only 5 miles square, and most people don't
Right,
differentiate between.
Okay.
Most people don't differentiate between Kenmore and Buffalo. Meaning, like you might remember, Mike, the whole Delaware area where like the Target Plaza and
Yeah. Uh-huh.
you know that's Kenmore.
Is that where the cheap movie theater was?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
That whole area, like you cross the street and you're in Kenmore, and no one really differentiates.
Oh yeah,
until
the
you have
bowling lanes, maybe.
Yeah. Yep. Kenmore Lanes.
Yeah,
right?
Kenmore Lanes. Yep.
And no one differentiates that between. And right across the street, you have Schaefer Projects, which is Buffalo.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Literally across the street. So like the line between Buffalo and Kenmore goes down the middle of the street.
Right.
Like if you're at, say, University Plaza, you know where South Campus Station is.
Mhm.
On one side of the street, you're in Buffalo. On the other side of the street, you're in Kenmore. And
Okay.
nobody really differentiates because Kenmore is just so small.
Right.
It's either how.
Unless you're canvassing and you get the police called on you. Then you'll
Right.
know.
I was gonna say unless you have to deal with the police, then there's a differentiation. So where I'm at, like, so pretty much you can assume, even though it's not the truth, people perceive Kenmore as Buffalo. Like they don't think they're outside of Buffalo when they're in Kenmore, even though they are, because it's just so close. And where I'm at, like I'm even in Kenmore, I'm 10 minutes from Lake Erie. So if I walk up, say, Military, right, I'm walking alongside Niagara River, straight to Niagara Falls.
Hey,
Not that-
Wu-Tang gave a shout out to Buffalo recently, specifically the
Wu-Tang
RZA.
sucked.
The RZA gave a shout out to Buffalo. They were saying
Maybe
how
Buffalo's using his ice cream truck music.
Did they do it because Jay died?
No, this was before that. This was RZA was being interviewed, and there was actually could it have been because of Shay? I can't remember, but RZA ends up talking about people sleeping on Buffalo, and RZA said he never slept on Buffalo because him and ODB used to party up there a lot.
I don't know why anybody would sleep on Buffalo.
Well, you know, if you know,
or any town for that matter.
well, you know, people know what they know and don't know what they don't know, so therefore sleeping.
I think the only town up here that you can sleep on is Amherst.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's
Safest city in America, right?
Is that also the whitest suburb?
It is. It's the safest city in America, though. At least it has been for like ever. That was his claim to fame. Let me get two packs of Black & Milds. That was his claim to fame for years, that it was literally the safest city in America because just the crime rate was so low.
As opposed to East Palo Alto, California, which apparently had the worst per capita murder rate, like, for like a wicked small city.
I mean, the most you would get back in the day in Amherst, no, thank you. The most you would get back in the damn Amherst was joyriders.
Mm-hmm. Dangerous.
You know, some kid stole his mom or dad's car and was caught
Oh,
joyriding.
God.
I mean, I'm sure there's just a lot of, obviously, in any city, there's a lot of drugs that just, you know. And when you start getting the title safest city in America, I'm sure you sweep a lot of things under the rug so that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Some white collar crime going on.
Yeah.
Well, also, I'm sorry, but there's drugs in white bread suburb America. Like,
Yep, all
say
over.
there's not is like kidding yourself. Like, honestly,
mad heroin.
honestly,
Dumb coke.
I knew more people with drug problems from growing up upstate than I know in the city.
For sure.
Like,
I mean, a lot of China.
but like there has literally been like, I wish I didn't have to say this, but there's literally been like, in like the 2 high school classes before mine, down to like the couple after mine. So like basically anyone who graduated between like 2000.
Hey, Emily, I don't want to cut
2004.
you off. I just want to also shout out my man Raul.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, Raul, what's up,
I'm
man?
being rude.
No, you're not. I just happened to see him.
Oh,
Welcome, Raul.
Thank you, Matthew.
And for some reason, I have a split screen and I can see 2 people now for the first time ever. I don't know what I did. But I see
You broke
Raul
it.
and Flav.
but no,
Well,
like
I'm sorry for that, for my part.
I think like, no, but what I was saying is like from like the classes of like 2000 to 2004 in my high school, so like around my vintage, there's been
Wait, is that the word you're going with, vintage?
Yeah.
It's 21st century.
Around my age group. So there's been like 2 or 3 people who graduated in those classes who have passed away since in the past 20 years, like pretty much before they turned 40, either from drugs or from car accidents or from like that, like mainly drug overdoses and car accidents in the snow. And I'm like, oh my God, I know more people who have died of heroin overdoses in small town America than like anywhere else in my life.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like, I know more people who have done heroin from small town America than I know in New York.
Well, Plano, Texas is like the corporate center of Texas. Very, very white bread, very upper class, and it's got the highest teen suicide rate in the country because of it.
A lot of money in Plano.
That.
Yeah.
A lot of money in Plano.
Yeah. Too much, maybe. Too much for one city to handle.
Enough money to make you neglect your kids.
Bingo.
I don't know. I tend to think that on a variation of different strokes for different folks, like different classes, different problems.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
That's
Like Jeff
sure.
Bezos has his own problems, you know, being the wealthiest man in America. It's not always a cakewalk.
Yeah.
One of his problems was having a guillotine constructed in his front yard during the pandemic, right? That was one
Sure. You know, and he
know
may
that,
be
but that makes sense.
he may be actually how do you call it? Identifying with a lot of the things going on right now, but just because he's the wealthiest guy in the world, he has his own set of rules and problems.
It's interesting.
Well, how do you
that you
think
say
He
that,
has
'cause
his own first world problem.
How do I think he got there?
You mean more money, more problems?
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
It's
sure,
it's
like
not
he's got his own problems and shit, but
it's not just that though. Like when you really think about it, right? There's things that we as people who don't have like a certain level of wealth don't even consider, and it's something that I used to think about. Like, you know, if I had $1 billion, right? I would probably like my family structure would change. Like
like a
I would probably
billion
be
dollars.
I'd
Cool.
probably
You could
be the
change the you could
yeah
change
but
the economy of a small
yeah
country
yeah
with
but
$1 billion.
It
I'm
sounds
just
like the
looking at
beginning of a lottery. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the structure of my family. It would change because I would certainly become the patriarch whether I chose to or not.
yeah.
And it would matter. I would be my family's patriarch, and so the dynamics of my family would change forever after. And everyone who came into my family, on some level, whether it was a moral decision or not, would probably have to be approved by me. And then when you look at families that exist like that, like they don't know what it's like to grow up like we did, where they don't have a patriarch or a matriarch, because that person who has $1 billion is the person that is responsible for establishing and in many levels sustaining the family's name. It matters to that person who their niece marries,
Mhm.
especially if they're going to be paying their niece's college tuition and putting them in situations where they're going to benefit or make more money for the family.
Mhm.
It you know what I mean, and it matters to their niece that they have their great uncle's approval because he's the, you know what I mean, like these things. So I'm just looking at how just families change when you change class, just the
Not
structure and the values of a family.
not just that ish, but you're also looking at the fact that once you have that level of money, people want it. So
Yeah.
your paranoia level hits the roof.
Yep.
You
I've
don't
met
know
a
who your
couple
real
billionaires
friends
in my
are.
life, and they are the most paranoid people I have ever met in my life. For instance, if you tell a billionaire good morning, he's already thinking, what are you trying to get from him or her?
Hmm.
You know. So
I
Yeah,
mean, it's
that makes sense.
similar. It's similar to like, and this is on a much smaller scale, but like, it's similar to like when somebody was nice to me in high school, I legit thought they were just trying to copy my homework. Like, I was like, what do you want from me? Like, why are
Well,
you
I know
being
why
nice?
I know why I was nice to girls in high school.
yeah,
To
it was a
copy their
different story.
homework?
It was somewhat like that. Somewhat like that.
Had nothing to do with homework.
I feel like to some
I'm
It
degree,
not
was work
taking
you
the
did at
bait.
home.
I'm not
Yeah.
taking the bait.
yeah, money definitely changes people. It's the absolute power is absolute corrupt, and it corrupts things. It alters things, adulterates them in some ways or another. But we, fall back on some of the like, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, then we have, the truly great society or the great peace or the great release from that corruption. Uh, if, if that were an idealistic thing to say, or
It's not too idealistic because we had presidents before who were extremely wealthy and yet did not use their position or power to engrandise themselves. I'm thinking particularly of FDR, who
I was
established
gonna say Roosevelt.
yeah,
This is literally what I was gonna
Roosevelt
say.
was one of the most richest families at the Roosevelts at the time. They encountered two presidents in their stable of family, and
Hmm.
they did not use that power to make themselves richer. Unlike the present day wealth machine that is Trump and his using of the position to make himself better.
Leave my president alone.
we've seen lots of politicians take advantage of the system in their favor, even if it was us speculating on special lobbyist deals or other special interest investments on the side, or
Sure,
their family members getting
sure,
in on food tasting jobs that they never show up for but got paid
of
millions
course.
to do. Right. So,
Oh, that was some Long Island shit.
right, we've seen a lot of stuff happen with politics and money again changing people. Um, it's interesting for us to talk about a remedy to that, or an approach to that. And I found that as a canvasser with Citizens Campaign for the Environment, that was something I'd bring up to people at the door, is letting them know, your money is going towards lobbying, education, and research. And they would look at me and they would say, well, I don't like lobbying. Lobbying that's no good. That's messing with my legislators and taking away from their ability to represent me. And then I have to explain to them that, corporate interests use lobbying against us every day. And we have to work, we have kids to take care of, we have things going on where we can't go to the lobby and say no.
There's a better word for that kind of
okay.
doesn't encourage people to think like that. It's advocacy.
Okay, yes. No, and I think that was mentioned to me actually before by Jason, because I told him I mentioned lobbying and it's a trigger for some people, and advocacy does make more sense. It speaks more clearly to what exactly.
But teachers have advocacy. Teachers, I'm just saying that not all lobbying is bad.
Yeah.
You mean
but the
advocacy along the lines of the long list of things I have to do? Yeah.
Yeah, the deal, Raul, is like, how you guys always say, like, defund the police sounds bad and this and that? Yeah. Well, it's the same with the word lobbying.
Lobbying, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that.
Like, yeah, some people know what it means, but a lot of people just have a bad connotation.
Right.
No, and I agree. I'm not making fun of your statement. I'm just talking.
No, you can make fun. I don't care. We're here to have fun.
Language is so very important because it paints a picture in our minds, and that's why I like it. It's funny to always say, like, language is a psychic experience. We're using sounds and collisions of air out of our mouths to create images of light in our minds. I mean, that's an amazing thing. When I say lobby, there's an image in your head. When I say advocacy, there's an image in your head, provided you're listening and you're receptive, of course. So it is an important distinction to make there. When we talk about what connects lobbying and advocacy, representation. And that's what I would tell people is, like, while you're here at home doing what you have to do to make ends meet, we're in the lobby representing you. So it's like you're in two places at once. And when you give us your letter and sign the support statement, it's as if you have a foot in the door standing right there next to us while you're here at home taking care of your life. And they ended up liking that image when I would, repaint the picture for them. That definitely got a lot of support. But the point was bringing to them their role and participation in the power, in the fight against corruption, and how they can compete with big money just by sharing a little bit of a contribution towards the advocacy of their own family interests to fight against special interests. And I feel like that's something to speak to when we talk about the remedy of big money issues, or, we're talking about how money changes things, like turns the household over to, the money. Now it's not, if you said a patriarchy, or, you have this member of the family that dictates things even for the nieces and nephews. But at the end of the day, is it really the great uncle doing it, or is it the invisible hands of money working through the great uncle? And that's why I feel it's an interesting thing to see sometimes where, like, the means to cling to money and power sometimes even puts family interest to a back seat. I mean, what if my niece really loves this guy, and they're going to make great art and poetry, but it's a bad look for the money, and it really drains the economic value of my family. I mean, do I represent the family interest of my niece, or do I represent the special interest of the funds that the family depends on? So it's such a strange dynamic. In one case, I'm afraid to lose the money, and in another case, I love that my niece is happy. So whether it's a fear-based motivator or a love-based motivator seems to be a deciding factor in the results of that power or corruption.
We gotta open things up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think people with money also, like, that they legit don't know what it's like not to have money, so they're scared of losing it, or scared of
Some
losing
do,
their
though. Some come from
recommendation.
nothing. Jeff Bezos, as an example, to bring him up again, was an adopted figure. And he worked for a teacher, I believe, or some sort of union guy. His father was a union guy.
I meant though, like people like from these long-standing generational wealth families, like the Rockefellers
Sure.
or the Vanderbilts. Like they don't know what it's like not to have money, so they're afraid to lose it.
Yeah, I mean we're all afraid to lose money.
Well, we all are to some degree. That's true, but that's because we need money to live.
The threat is more immediate in some cases than others.
Yeah. So, are you saying that Bezos didn't start with any money?
Bezos started with his parents' money.
Right, but his parents were middle class at best.
No, who the hell you heard that from? What do you mean?
His father is an immigrant.
Okay. From where to where?
He was a Spanish immigrant. I forget which country.
Like,
but
isn't Jeff Bezos' family like a diamond mine family from South Africa?
No.
Or am I getting him am I getting him mixed up with the other bajillionaire?
Probably
the
another
other bajillionaire.
Probably another one. But
because I could swear that one of them, like, their family fortune.
Amazon started in the garage. No, Amazon started in the garage for books only.
That doesn't sound right, but I don't have enough to back it up on.
It's okay. Matthew, look it up and then bring it to me the next time. Just bring me the link.
It says, just a quick look up just says, no, Jeff Bezos was not born rich. Bezos' mother had him when she was 17 years old, and his father, Ted, was 18. The teen pregnancy meant that the two had barely any money to their names.
Yep.
Jeff's biological father worked at Walmart. That's just a quick answer. But that's pretty incredible that he was able to amass that fortune.
Not that incredible. The top 10 billionaires, like 8 or 7 of them were born middle class or poor.
Well, like Howard Schultz from Starbucks, like he lived in NYCHA housing, like he lived in the projects in Brooklyn.
I was gonna say we tend to get to the bottom of these things pretty quickly. Flav is quick to Google.
That's fine.
I mean, that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've gotten a couple things before
Warren Buffett was born middle class and drives the same truck that he's been driving forever. Kind of a joke now.
But I remember, like,
we were talking about Jeff Bezos, right?
Yeah.
And his parents being born some such way, right?
Well, I heard that his father that adopted him was from another country, immigrant.
He was Cuban.
Yeah, he was? Makes sense.
I just looked it up.
Cuban.
Wow. That's quite
no relation, guys. No relation.
Wait, Jeff Bezos was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, to Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen. Or no, he was born Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen.
Yeah, and then Bezos was his stepdad who adopted him.
Wow.
And see, aren't we glad we have Wikipedia? What did we ever do without it when we were in school and we had to actually go to the library and use the encyclopedia?
I don't know. That's my existence. So now you're just being ageist, Emily.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean,
well, I had to use the encyclopedia at the library too.
Raul, she's being vintage.
I thought about the vintage word.
You know, with Bezos's father working at Walmart as part of the story and having such a destitute.
Is that really true? Because
you would think you would have.
His dad, he was born. Jeff Bezos was born in 1964. Let me see when Walmart was founded. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Been around for a long time. Walmart's been around for a long time.
Walmart. Interesting to see him represent, that kind of climb up through the middle class.
1962.
He would have a good language to kind of help some of the people suffering from minimum wage issues and not being able to make ends meet. It would be interesting to see him come out with some more personality. To be honest, I haven't really seen much personality with Jeff Bezos. Maybe one moment where he gets married on a red carpet to someone who has
How relatable.
Well,
how about the stuff that woman tried to blackmail him with? Wasn't that a little personality showing there?
Oh, out of Jeff Bezos, you'd say, huh?
Out of Jeff Bezos, yeah.
It seemed like
I guess what it shows you about billionaires is like they're I was surprised because I would have thought that most billionaires had a big leg up, but I guess their ability to pimp the system, doesn't always come from having a leg up.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Well, Jeff Bezos looks like an alien. Whoa, so that's true.
No way. There's no
distinct.
way you can become a billionaire just on your own. There's no fucking way.
Well,
there's
you gotta prove that shit. You gotta prove that shit on
There's
me.
no on your own.
No, you gotta
at
look.
all.
You gotta look it up, man.
He used.
I'm looking it up. Like everything I've looked up counters that assertion. So like,
what are
do
you
you
looking up that's countering that assertion?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Well, let's see.
You found out that that Walmart's been around for longer than you thought. What else? What else you got?
We'll give you some time. We'll continue and we'll give you some time.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good subject even for another episode or reflection as well, is the legend of the individual or the legend of Jeff Bezos.
Are we saying that Jeff Bezos is a bad person?
I'm not saying that.
Nobody said that.
No,
where did that come from?
Well, that was a question.
No, I mean the answer is no. No one said that.
Well,
I think Matthew is sort of.
I don't know. I don't know that he's a good person.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at because I kind of.
I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything much in his favor. So
my next question is the determination based upon the fact that he's a billionaire or because of just his character?
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah,
but it's mostly
we know much about his character.
It's mostly about the way his workers are treated and the way he handles business. But let's be clear. In order to be a billionaire, usually corners are cut, and usually there's cutthroat business techniques where you're not.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm just asking about.
Take that from somewhere.
Not always, guys. Not
so
always.
yeah, I know.
I'm just asking.
What is the
Warren Buffett is the guy who owns I can't say the name now.
Berkshire Hathaway,
Berkshire Hathaway companies, and he treats his employees very well.
I was asking about. I kind of tend to lean with Raul about not always because I was really speaking to like what we know.
Yeah, I mean, he might be an awful person like to deal with every day, Bezos, but as far as he runs his companies, he's not either good nor bad. He's just kind of questionable at times, in my opinion.
I wouldn't say good. The way he treats his customer, the way he treats his employees. I mean, I've seen doc exposés on like the way those workers are expected to run those like huge long lines
sorting
of
machines
products and
all the things that make him
to,
his money.
Yeah, the way they're supposed to get to those products with like virtually.
But employees have to make
breaks.
the money. That's the point of being an employee.
Really? Tell me more. Tell me more.
Well, the point of being an employee.
I was going to say when I worked at Jeff Bezos owns Amazon, right? Because when I worked at Amazon, I didn't experience that.
Yeah.
I was able to go to the bathroom, and I didn't like my boss because he was a jerk, but I didn't experience what's being described.
I mean it's It's I can pull up
It's
the
boss dependent
info.
in a lot of these
Yeah,
corporations.
like where were they
I mean,
working?
my daughter just stopped working there because of COVID, and I worked there up until December of last year.
Yeah, I mean, maybe maybe you got a good one. Or maybe
I
you
mean,
had
I don't
some-
know. When they say exposés, like those are usually opinionated.
Well,
Well, I mean, what they're like.
the thing is when you're talking about difference between Amazon and a corporation like Walmart, which literally treats its employees like dirt and has had.
Right.
I've seen the documentaries, high prices of low wages, things like that. Those type of documentaries, and they talk about Walmart, and it's pretty terrible all around.
Yeah. Now, what's the good ones? What is it? The Waltons or something like that?
No, the Waltons are the owners of the thing. The people who own the man who owns Costco is really
Costco,
fantastic.
They treat their employees
Starbucks is good.
some respect. Who? Starbucks?
Yeah.
Yeah, Starbucks is definitely
Starbucks is very.
don't know if I
Starbucks
would
is very
agree.
like it's very middle management dependent. Like
Yeah, that's true.
to put it
I worked at
nicely.
Starbucks before.
Well, so did I.
So I
for,
guess
like,
it really fucking does depend on the manager.
So did I. I worked at like 5 different stores, and I had shitty managers and I had good managers, and it all depended on like what store I was working at, I think.
Oh man, I was 0 for 3.
Matthew, you're luck, man. We're not taking you to Vegas. That's serious.
Well, I mean,
That's fair.
I had
I don't want you to take me to Vegas.
Yeah, if we want to.
Hey! I'm an attractive man. I can take who I want to Vegas.
You can. But
we
you
want
have
to get
ask
real,
permission first there.
Oh yes, definitely.
if we want to get real-ish with my problem with billionaires, I know you don't like people talking shit about people who have lots of money just because of their money. But my problem with billionaires.
Where did that come from?
Because
I wasn't even inquiring.
Every time I talk
I wasn't
shit
even
about
inquiring about your problem with billionaires. I didn't even imply that you had one.
Okay.
I'm like, where's this coming from?
Well, my problem with billionaires is that usually, in order for billionaires to occur, there are other people who are lacking, right? And it's not like we live in this world where there's billionaires, but there's lots of people who are doing well. We have these huge economic gaps, and it's like these billionaires alone could easily like offset these horrible gaps that we have. So my problem is, if you're in some kind of company where you're a billionaire, why weren't you doing more profit sharing, or why weren't you tripling?
Yeah, why don't you pay your fucking workers their worth and shit?
Yeah, why don't you pay them a
like,
living
why
wage?
don't you do that at very fucking
like if your
least, right?
workers live,
Are these
you got more money than God?
Are these rhetorical questions being put towards me?
No,
we're putting this to the ethos.
Okay.
I mean, you can surely be sure. I mean, if you have an answer, you can. But I mean,
I didn't even have the question, so no. I'm willing to. I'm listening.
Well, I'll question you. I'll ask. What is your problem? Because I can relate to.
What's my problem?
Yeah.
My problem. I'll tell you my problem.
Tell me your problem.
But there's not
a very PE sort of question, right?
Yeah. So I mean, my problem is they need to spread the wealth. Like if you should be a billionaire working for a company. Instead, like, may you be a multi-100,000-aire, and may your employees, if they live in New York City, may they all make enough to like live in a 1-bedroom, or live in a 2-bedroom.
For the wealth they generate for you, they may as well, right?
Yeah, for the wealth they generate for you, they shouldn't have to like either have roommates or like
I'm saying
be able
like
to
whatever
like,
happened
survive
whatever happened to having a solid job and being able to support yourself.
They
When
should
the
be
fuck
making
did that
like
fall
30.
out of style?
If you're a billionaire, then your employee should be making like $30 an hour, or at least like 25, which I think is what it
Oh
would
yeah,
cost.
in
Or
this
at least,
economy, that's at
yeah.
least. I'm with you.
Oh, I shouldn't have had to live with a roommate who adopted a feral cat and whose boyfriend peed in the living room. I should have been paid to live alone.
Yeah, seriously.
What
Okay,
else
so
you want to try
$25
today?
an hour times 40 hours is $1,000 a week. So yeah,
Oh,
52,000 bucks a week, and then you're still going to get taxes taken out. I mean, that's
listen, I'll pay my fucking taxes.
that's
Just make sure
you-
that Jeff Bezos pays his taxes too,
exactly, and that's the other problem.
because he didn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
And either did his company,
Like,
Amazon, for that
no.
matter.
Yeah, the first $1 trillion company in history never paid a tax.
And now everyone's on AOC's ass for saying that like she prevented jobs from coming to Queens when she didn't want them in Queens because they wouldn't pay taxes to the city.
Yeah.
Well, that's smart.
That's a big yike for me.
To be completely honest, as I don't mind any successful company as long as they pay taxes, as long as they pay their share into it. In fact, I think that companies should pay the majority of taxes and private citizens should not, because the engine of our we lost somebody.
Damien.
Damien.
Oh yeah, D-Man's out.
But
I'll be back.
my the point of my tax policy is that if you drive it off the personal success of people will become agitated and angry at all the necessities of government needs. But if you drive it towards companies basically mostly are localized. They don't have a choice to just run their company off. Even if they did, that you could still tax them in a way that taxes their business inside of the country.
I mean, I could say like as a private citizen, like what I don't like about taxes, and I'll gladly pay my taxes, but what I don't like is that I have no control over how my tax money is spent, and 99% of the time I'm sure it's going to something that I object to.
Yeah,
but
that's the House of Representatives. That's who controls the purse strings of the federal government. If we're talking federal, if we're talking other ways, that then the city council controls it, or a strong mayor which doesn't have a city council, that sort of thing.
Well, that's a tough one because we all probably would want to fund different things, and then nothing would really be funded.
That's true. Probably. That's absolutely true. The way you affect it is by your representation. We are a republic. We're not a democracy. So our opinions are only expressed through Republicans, small r, representative government officials.
Yeah, like representative things.
Particularly,
ain't that the fucking catch-22 in it?
It sort of is. It sort of is. But the thing is that it's not hopeless, like a lot of people assume. It's just complicated. That's all. And the fight is long. It's a long fight. That's why these billionaires that are hostile towards regular people, like the Kochs and stuff like that, the Kochs, the Koch brothers, and Matthew.
No.
They hire their own lobbying firms and they set up their own foundations and stuff. So
that's a lot to be up against.
It is, but it's not unbeatable. Which is my message for today.
Thank you.
I do appreciate that sentiment, though, because I do find myself giving into hopelessness about a lot of things.
You shouldn't. There's always hope. No matter how bleak the situation, there's always hope. Trust me, it's been more bleak for some of us, and there was hope. So
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. I'll drink to that.
you do that, sir. I don't know what you're drinking. It looks like jam.
It's wine.
It's like red wine.
In a mason jar.
Red
yeah.
wine.
Red. And that group broke up, and that's a shame. That was a good group.
I mean, that was like their only.
I'll drink to that too.
They did a bunch of things. Actually, it's relevant that they come up now because a UB40 is an unemployment form in the UK.
Oh, is that where they got their name from?
Yes.
Ah.
Musicians not exactly lucrative in London, apparently,
You don't
Right.
say.
Or anywhere else on the planet.
or anywhere else on the face of the
Yeah,
earth.
really.
If it were, I'd be a millionaire. Shit.
I wonder, Ish at one point was, we had a subject we were talking about. I don't know if Ish wants to, you guys continued it in the thread. So I thought that we might be talking about it tonight.
Talking about what?
There was some touch on like religion in the thread.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Ish
that-
and I
Oh,
have been talking about
do you
how,
want me to get started?
Well, Ish and I have been talking about how religion seems to be the thing that like leftists or liberals don't mind, quote unquote, bashing.
Yeah, and that's terrible.
And
Yeah, that's true.
I was kind of, what's that?
It's hypocritical.
It is hypocritical.
Yeah,
It's
I was
liberal
defending it
ideology.
at first, saying, like if this is just
You said. I'm sorry to cut you off, Mike. You said it right because Raul, when you said it against liberal ideology, I'm like, how do you call yourself a liberal? And then you. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go on, Mike.
That's my problem with.
Keep going.
That's my
keep
problem.
going.
with-
Ish, I was
What do you
only
mean?
going to summarize what you said, so you say it.
You know
Say it
me.
more passionately.
I'm as a liberal, I criticize liberals because I want us to be right and true.
Yeah.
Right. And one thing that I always see liberals do is they ignore the part of the Constitution. And you even corrected me on that, but I still want to use that term, Mike. That speaks to belief and creed.
Yeah.
So you can't talk about marginalized people. There's so many things you can't do. But you can just not criticize, not question critically, just straight bash religious groups, specifically Christians. Like, what type of hypocrisy is this?
Now, I want to bring up a certain picture or meme, but the person who brought it up isn't here, so I don't know how cool that is to bring it up. But can we still bring up
we'll wait till he's here.
Okay, I was going to say we could still bring up the meme itself and the sentiment of it.
No, I'll wait till he's here.
Okay. Does anyone know where he went?
Bad
Damien?
internet, maybe?
Oh, I could get him.
Is he here?
But yeah, I just wanted to be on the record. That's a conversation we can have because it's something that I see liberals, I mean, conservatives do it to Muslims.
Yes.
Liberals do it to Christians.
Yes, and it's frustrating as a liberal Christian that I half my time is explaining to my allies that I'm not the devil.
Right. I get it, and or not even necessarily laughing off, just kind of ignoring things that are absolutely offensive. Absolutely. And you just kind of give them a pass and just kind of ignore it.
I have to, because if not, my day will be spent defending every single little thing dish. But the truth is, like, I don't understand. I really don't understand where we went from the 1960s, where we accepted everybody, and no matter what color, creed, sex, gender, wealth, any sort of qualifier you can imagine, and we said no. Our religions, that should be mocked and made fun of and destroyed publicly.
And it's interesting because it's like the argument is when I have conversation with people, it's like, well, Christians are so oppressive and there's this and there's that, and I'm like, that's just like saying what you're doing is it's just like saying all black people are thugs.
It's exactly like saying that.
Yeah, or like saying like all Jewish people are like the Hasidic Jews, or
Mhm.
saying like all Muslims are extremists. Like
Are terrorists.
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
like it's sick.
It's just another
It's a
qualifier
stereotype.
that people fall under, because the real thought is much more complicated. It's just like everything else, I think. The simple answer becomes the answer, not because it's right, but because it's simple.
Mm.
But like for example, like I think I see what you're saying. Like it is a problem, like in the sense that like you almost feel like that it's something that you have to be ashamed, like the general you feels like it's something that you have to be ashamed of, that you go to church, because people are automatically going to assume that you're like
Yeah, it's absolutely
oppressive,
terrible.
and
It's
that's
absolutely terrible.
to me
Or like all fat people are rich. That's what
Well,
they did to me.
so
That's what
that-
they did to me in Ghana.
Lord have
Here-
mercy. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, if then I need to
No.
go to Ghana. I need to go to Ghana. I'd be set.
What they do to you, Flav?
You
Oh, they
heard
thought
the
I was.
story already.
They thought I was rich. They thought I was rich because
okay,
I was
okay, I
rotund.
remember.
Yeah, my rotund nature made them think I was rich.
But I
well,
think
that's just stereotyping, and that's wrong.
Yeah.
but I'll say
Shame.
like, you know,
Shame for shame.
like I myself, like I was raised in the church. Like
Hey,
am I like always good about going to church? Usually, not always. Like, but I definitely never, even as a kid, like subscribed to like any of the like homosexuality is wrong or any of that.
oh god!
is actually-
Imagine my fucking position where I was a gay kid that did buy into that. If we're gonna go down that fucking wormhole of
Mhm.
Yeah,
American
but,
Christianity and how it relates and intersects with
Well,
my
But
experience.
the
Christianity
thing
and
is, Matthew,
compulsory heterosexuality.
the thing is, Matthew, that's based on a misunderstanding of what the Bible means.
Oh, I know that. I
It's
know
not-
that.
Yeah,
it's
because
not-
it was.
you-
Yeah, but a lot of people
It was. I
misunderstand
know.
it.
I know
Yeah,
they
that.
do,
But that's
they do.
not
So-
what. That's not what people have made of it on a,
Yeah.
on a grander
So-
sociological level.
Right.
Like-
So that becomes the issue, right? It's like
That is the issue. Of course, it's
Yeah.
not like, oh, the Bible says the gay people are wrong. No, because that is a gross misconception and a mistranslation of the original Hebrew, and I know that, and now y'all know that if you take my word for it. But
I mean, to me, I just feel like that, like the golden rule should supersede everything else in the Bible. That like the way I was taught, you treat everybody like you want to be
Well, the
treated.
strongest statement in
hold
the
up.
Bible is the Beatitudes, right? It's the Sermon on the Mount and those type of things, and that
Oh.
encompasses what we have to what Christianity is about. Everything else is sort of like you can't take the Bible. First, you can't take the Bible literally because none of us read high Hebrew. First of all.
well, there are some people that do. And
There's some people that do.
That's
No,
where I
the
come
peop-
from
the people-
with the
the
whole
people- the
homosexuality is not actually condemned because of
There-
the people that
That's
know
not what
Hebrew.
it says exactly.
Well,
Exactly. The people that
there
do know Hebrew have said that that is not what it says.
there
No
are
matter what
two
any of
types
these
of people.
bastards-
There are two types of people that take the Bible literally. People, radical idiot Christians, and atheists who want to use the Bible to argue against those radical idiot Christians.
That's exactly it.
It
Oh,
sounds
man.
about right.
now wait a minute. Aren't
That
we
sounds like a yin yang thing.
now? Aren't we bashing radical Christians by calling them idiots?
Well,
Um,
if you don't understand
it's
your
more
own
complex than
religion,
that.
I don't
Yeah,
understand you.
Yeah, but-
that's kind of idiocy.
It
Yeah,
means
but
that they
who is
missed
to
the
say
point.
like who is to say who's right or wrong about it? Like they choose. It's all based on faith, right? So their faith tells them to look at the Bible literally, and other people of faith
Well,
say
your
you
faith
can't
doesn't
take it
tell them to
literally.
look at the
But
Bible.
then what
Your
is
faith
your
doesn't
faith
tell them to look
in?
at it literally.
Yeah, what is your
And-
faith in? If you're gonna look
Well,
at the Bible and read it and say, my faith is going to be in this interpretation, not a literal interpretation,
Faith-
not how it's been written, but this other thing,
But here's
Faith
the
needs-
point
Like-
too.
then
Faith
your
needs
faith
you
is
to-
misguided.
Faith
Well,
needs you to look
mean-
at the Bible critically, Flav.
Mhm.
If you're gonna especially if you're gonna believe it, or you're gonna critique it,
But
you
who's
need
to
to look
say
at it
what's
critically.
who's to say what's critical?
History. What's the historical context of this passage? What were
We,
the what
I
were
just,
the
we just had this conversation where I said
That's the
context matters.
Jews.
Well,
Context
also-
matters.
also
I'm sorry,
here's
go on,
the
Ralph.
If my
thing,
sect,
too.
if my sect of Christians believes, that all you newfangled Christians are trying to critically change it and rethink it and use this new age philosophy, and we think all of that is nonsense. We think that the old ways were better. Back in the olden times, people were more.
Oh, are you?
let me guess. America was great again too.
No.
I mean,
And
if that's
the same
we
thing.
also,
if
we also take
if that's
offense
what
to
you
that.
think,
We
if
also
that's
take
what you
offense-
think, if
we
that's what
also
you
take
think,
offense to that.
but Mike,
because
if that's what you, Mike, if that's what you think, so be it.
What?
Okay,
That's what I
but
was
I
going
don't.
to say. If
But I
that's
don't
what,
feel like I should be bashed by people who think I'm an idiot just because
And you
I
shouldn't.
look at the Bible
You shouldn't
in a
be.
literal.
But that doesn't mean I don't think you're an
I
idiot.
don't think
Hey,
it.
here's what makes you an
That-
idiot.
I'm just not gonna call you an idiot.
Here's what makes one an idiot. You
I
can
can
believe
respect that.
whatever you want to believe, but you're an idiot when your belief interferes with my ability to live my life according to my beliefs. Like,
Yes.
say for example, like honest to God, like it's an example of your right to swing your fist ends before my nose begins. You
But
can
don't,
believe whatever you can
don't take
believe
the
whatever
Lord-
you.
Don't take the Lord God's name in vain in front of me.
But you can believe whatever you want to believe, and I actually am. I try not to. I do it sometimes, but I try not to take the Lord's name in vain. But I think that you can believe whatever faith that you want to believe in, but there's a reason why there's separation of church and state.
You
Because
can
once,
interpret it how you want to. You're entitled to all of that.
because once the church's influence starts crossing into what's legal and illegal on a governmental standpoint, that's when we're going to start to have problems. If you're a church, you have every right to say we're not going to perform a gay wedding, for example.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Because a church is a private entity.
Yeah, that's cool. I will. I'm an
But-
ordained minister.
But the
Hey.
difference is that the state cannot say that, the state can't tell you that you can't be legally married to whoever the heck you want to be married to, but a church
Right.
is a private entity, so they can say they won't marry you because you
Yeah,
can always
to
find
me-
someplace else to go.
The argument of trying to get bigoted cake makers to make your wedding cake if you're two gay guys or two gay girls or a group of
Just
people.
go somewhere else.
Just go somewhere else. Give somewhere else your money. Give somebody else your money. I mean, it's
I
just the
agree.
ultimate. It's the
It's like
ultimate.
trying to make a racist white dude something for you and give them and take your money.
Right.
Really? Why don't
Why would I be giving them money?
Why
anyway?
bother?
Exactly.
Well, what if
That's
you're
why
what if you're in the middle of West Bumblefuck nowhere, and
The only
You know.
cake maker within 8 square miles.
Yeah, but you're being
Yeah.
being specific about
That's
something that we're
very
generalizing.
Well,
Like,
we're talking
he's the one
hypotheticals
wedding,
here.
the one bakery in the whole state.
Well, of course that sounds ridiculous.
Let me tell you
sometimes,
something. If
but
there- if
there are
there's,
places where that's an actual reality.
If there's one wedding, if there's one wedding planner in like Kentucky or Arkansas, and that's it, I'm willing to bet that they're also gay. So, you know.
There's also
That's
definitely more than one.
stereotype.
Yes, it is, Matthew. Yes, it is.
There's also
Motherfucker,
more.
But it's a
I'm-
fun stereotype. It's not like a stereotype that's bad. It's not that bad.
You know what?
Be honest, Matthew. You wanted
As
to
a
plan
queer-
weddings yourself.
As
You
a
wanted to-
queer,
Oh
I-
You
no!
wanted to
I'll
plan
give that
weddings
a pass.
yourself, sir. Don't lie to
Nobody
me.
wants to
Listen,
plan a
I'm
wedding.
as gay as the day is long. All right. I don't know if you picked that up yet.
We kind of figured it out.
I'm so glad because listen, it took God what
The beard
23
sort of
years?
flows it off, you know.
Look, I
I'm
can
used
pick
to
up.
it. It's a
I can
tragic
pick up on a
circumstance
gay
of my
person.
genetics. So what can I say?
So
Pick up on a gay person
I
500 miles away. Okay.
had no clue until you told me.
Well,
Because you're not
Right.
looking.
well, I say gay, but I'm queer, bisexual. You know, just in the gray area.
In the nuanced area.
I think
Yeah,
it's so
where the
cool you
cool
use it.
people hang
I
out.
think it's so cool you use the term the gray area.
I'm so cool, right? Can't you tell how cool I am?
I just thought it was cool. He's like, oh, the gray area. I'm in the gray area.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in the gray area soon once I start losing some pigment in my hair. It's only a matter
Well,
of
that's
time
that's a
now.
little late for some of us, my friend.
Even I have gray hair.
And you're the baby of the group.
Am I?
Do you
Or
even
you
know who
fit-
these
are you?
characters are? Let me wait. More important than our discussions on politics, money, or sex,
I can't.
do you know who
think
these
of-
characters are? Real quick,
Yeah.
Emily.
How are y'all?
Wait, is that Bunsen and Beaker?
No, it's Waldorf and Stedard from
Oh.
from the
I
Muppet
know
Show.
who Waldorf and Stadler are.
You
You know,
my-
you know
my-
who I almost said?
No, I know
I
who
almost
they are.
said
I
from
just mixed up
trading.
the name.
I almost said from trading places.
That's who they were made from.
Yeah,
Oh,
I said,
yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
I
Oh,
don't
man,
So
I
and,
just
and my
see
shirt says
ideology.
haters gonna hate. So I
Okay.
just this is our show today. Haters gonna
Fitz,
hate.
how old are you?
How old
Movie?
is who?
Fitz.
Fizz. Wait, can I guess
Me?
first?
Yeah.
Yeah, go guess.
Damn, if I
I
guess
say
too
usually
old, I'm gonna feel like an asshole. 28.
30.
30.
31.
30. I turned 30 like last month. Perfect.
Yay,
okay.
I was right.
Everybody
Ooh.
who said 30, bing.
So you're the baby, and Emily is now middle child.
I am no longer the baby. And then when we get
Yay.
Wait a
Cynthia
minute,
here, I
I'm
won't be the baby either.
You like this group suddenly, Matthew?
I'm baby.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Oh, you
No, but
better.
That's right. Wait, but on my screen, he is on the corner.
Yeah, on my
That's
screen,
me
I'm in the corner too. Nobody
That's
does
me.
that shit to me.
Well, you never put me on the corner.
It's me in the spotlight, losing my religion with a bunch of my friends.
Wow, when's
That's
the
my
last
joint.
time I was the youngest person in the group?
No idea, man. You gotta tell us.
Oh,
Don't
ages
tell
ago.
us.
Ages ago.
No, don't go 2 ages ago, or we'll have to make fun of you again. for
Not
being
too
the
many
young one.
ages ago. All
Because
right.
your ages ago is like weeks ago for me and Flav.
Oh, you're right. Because time dilates as you age.
As you age, everything gets quicker. It's so sad.
You know,
It's
I
so
just
sad.
can't relate to this older generation.
And
It is so
I
racist.
missed I missed the days when summer lasted all year.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was so good. So
Yeah.
good.
When was this?
Today smelled like autumn, and I'm inconsolable, man. Like summer's over.
Emily, you don't remember being a kid and summer was just like this never-ending thing until one day it was over, and then you got older and you're like, oh, it's only 90 days.
Oh, I guess that's true.
What do you mean? It's only a quarter of the year?
I remember
Come on, man.
I remember when I realized how short summer was, and that was like the shortest summer ever. When I first realized just how short it was,
Yeah.
I'd be going back to
Oh,
school.
and
That was like depressing.
Yo, that in conjunction with like learning how much shorter days get as like the winter comes, like God, how do you
I don't
cope?
know, like I'm weird.
How do I do this every year?
I'm weird though. Like summer always seemed too long to me because like I was the
You got a
weird
bunch of
kid who
badass kids.
I was the weird kid who actually wanted to go to school.
You're still
yeah,
that
that's pretty
weird kid to us, Emily.
Yeah,
Well,
you were
I
the
still also want to go to school.
I also want to go to school. School was great. I don't know about certain people, but school was great. Except for high school, which was extremely awkward and weird for everybody.
Not for
And
me.
middle school
Oh,
wasn't.
I don't miss high school or middle school.
Here we go.
We got
I never went. I never went to
Hey,
school.
D-Man's back.
Hey, what's good?
I never went to school as least as possible. But when I did go to school, high school was pretty fun for me. Even though I barely went, I had cool teachers.
That's good. That's good.
One or two in
high
particular.
School was better.
I mean,
college was so impersonal. As
college
far as teachers go.
was actually I had the exact opposite experience. College was much better for me, for every reason.
See,
all right. Let's go.
Actually,
Damien. Let's go to Damien.
I need to rethink this.
Well, hold that thought because I think Flav had a question and he just went ghost mode.
Flav.
Yeah.
What was your question? I'm sorry.
No, for Damien.
All right, he might be busy at the moment.
No, like I was gonna say, I just didn't like staying home from school because I just had no human contact outside my household, practically outside of school.
Gotcha.
Hey.
Well, except for like the kids around the corner.
And look at where they led you.
Did you do a lot of drugs in high school?
No, I didn't do any drugs in high school.
Did you drink?
Once in a while, but not like that. Like, I drank in the sense of like I had a glass of wine on a holiday. I didn't do anything.
But when did you start smoking weed?
Somewhere after I graduated.
High school or college?
High school. So I was 17. I wasn't an adult yet, but like I was out of high school.
Or I was a late bloomer with weed.
Oh, well, I was a late bloomer with other things. So there you go.
I didn't start smoking weed till I was 21.
Same. I think I made it to 22 before I started smoking weed. To the shock and horror of everybody who knew me. Because I've always looked like a stoner.
Well,
that's actually when I started selling weed too. I joined the army and they just corrupted me. I was smoking weed, selling weed.
That's typically the armed forces.
You started smoking weed when you joined the military? That's hilarious.
But like 2 years into being in the army, I was like regularly smoking weed. And then by my third year, I was selling like garbage bags full of weed.
Were they hefty garbage bags?
You know, that's very interesting.
Well,
yeah, I was all over. I spent my whole tour overseas. I was stationed in Germany, and it was. I got turned out. Like I ain't drink, I ain't smoke, none of that. Joined the army. I was drinking, smoking,
you say you were
weed,
a good
selling
boy
weed.
before the military corrupted you?
I wasn't a good boy. I just didn't drink or smoke. I mean, I was running through teachers in high school. We did have this conversation before.
Yes, I know.
on air.
Who did?
Us. I've heard all about it. But since
I wasn't really a good boy. I wasn't as good as I should have been.
But since I'm not certain other people who shall not be named, I'm not going to shame you.
You're not going to shame me?
Thank you.
But since I'm not the other woman that regularly joins this chat, I'm not going to shame you.
Oh, well, she wasn't shaming me. She was just shaming my teachers.
Oh, well, yeah, she was shaming them. I guess that's true. Then she yelled at me.
Only two.
Only two?
Yeah.
You're a slacker.
Ro, you got me beat, Ro.
No.
Look,
My mother, on the off chance my mother ever watches these shows, I have to be careful.
Like, nah, nope,
No,
not me.
I was just lying. Oh,
Well,
please.
since my
I was
mother,
only staying after school for math.
since my
That's
mother
right.
doesn't-
Little
since my
extra
mother
credit.
doesn't understand YouTube, I could say what I'm.
You know, my dad, who's 85 years old, and he literally loves YouTube. He loves YouTube.
Oh, he might hear this.
No, he's okay. He's okay. You want to talk about a life well lived? That's my father. Okay. He has
Yeah, I'm
experience-
very interested in that and having a show one day.
Yeah,
where
I'll
we
talk
have a
about
conversation
my
about
dad.
your
My dad is
dad's life.
interesting. My dad is very interesting, dude.
I've said as much to you before.
I
I'm
bet.
very curious to hear about his time in Cuba and
Yeah, sure. And the rest of my family
His
too.
time in Cuba when?
I'm Cuban, Matthew, and we lived through the revolution. We were fighting against the revolution, my family and I. Well, not
Oh,
I was too
shit.
young. But I grew up with all their stories, so it's like it's right here, always with me.
Speaking of which, did you see the Red Sun? Did you see Superman Red Sun?
I read it years ago. I thought it was
Yeah.
brilliant.
Oh, okay. They have the animation.
and the animation does it justice.
Yeah, I've seen the animation too, and I said, my God, they actually did a good job on it.
I mean, I could tell you about my in-laws escaping Pinochet in Chile.
Hold on
That's
just a
very
second,
similar.
Emily. I just want to say one thing to Raul that's off topic, and then I'll let everybody else.
All right.
3 Jokers came out today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I heard about that. I haven't seen
Yeah,
it
it
though.
came out today.
Comic book?
Yeah, Batman 3 Jokers.
That totally sounded like the beginning of a joke.
Yeah, I did.
No.
Sort of.
Batman
No,
3 Jokers came out.
Batman
Yeah.
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 3 jokers walked into a
No,
bar.
it's just like a big Batman event that's been hinted at for like 5 years about the 3
Yeah,
Jokers.
I can't wait to read it. It's awesome.
And it came out today, so
Was it
I just
good?
wanted
Was
to
it
put it out
good-ish?
yeah, it was good.
Oh,
It's
good to know.
It's good.
I'm still working
really
on
good.
getting you and Flav on the other show to talk about comic books and movies and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, Man of Tomorrow was great too.
Yeah, I
Are we
agree.
talking Marvel movies or just geek movies? in
Man of
general?
Tomorrow is DC.
Well,
It's a Superman.
Hey.
It's a Superman.
superhero
It's a
movie.
comic.
Sorry. That was a mistake.
Probably.
They really need to
I
make a
don't
Grendel
actually-
movie. Ish.
I think so.
That would be amazing. I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet.
I think people would love it.
Grendel, like
Not
the
Beowulf.
antagonist from
Beowulf.
Beowulf.
yeah, right?
Yeah. Yes, and no. Yes, that's where the name comes from, but that has nothing to do with the comic book.
You know,
Really.
I was gonna
Okay.
ask also,
Good to
Raul,
know.
you have this octopus background, and it's reminded me of what I think, if I remember correctly, is the symbol for Hydra.
Yes,
Hydra.
yes.
Oh, is that what it's from?
No. This is okay. Where Hydra comes from is Spectre from James Bond, and Spectre had this background, a similar background to this, because they were the octopus that always ate everything.
Okay.
And so
They got their
Hydra
arms and shit.
is named after the bad guys from James Bond. Ian Fleming's James Bond.
Everybody out there in viewership land, make sure you give some thumbs up for Damien's Hydra reference. That was
That's
pretty
right.
good.
That's right. I like it.
That was, you know what I mean? That was pretty good.
You
So
earned
they
your dead your
recognize-
nerd cred.
Whoa!
Nice.
Why do I? No,
What
So
are you,
they-
are you
they
trying to say
recognize-
Hail Hydra? Because
I'm not trying to say it. I live it.
Yeah, I did
What?
remember that from the beginning. Is Raul, is his economic candidates attached to Hydra? It was a serious question. I wondered. When
Like I'm voting for the
Yeah,
Viper.
Oh God.
I'm voting for Baron Zemo. Well, we already have Baron
exactly.
Zemo.
Baron Zemo or
What?
or the
Why do
Viper.
I feel like my
the
Zoom
Viper,
screen,
exactly.
Why do I feel like my Zoom screen right now looks like a group of people at a Kevin Smith show?
Because we are.
Yeah.
So in
Kevin's-
that universe, they recognize James Bond or what?
They don't. The Marvel never talks about its sources, right? But unless you get the creators and the writers at cons and stuff, they never talk about the sources of their inspirations. Yeah, they never, not officially, not as a company. They'll never say, "Oh, Deadpool is based off of, the Man in the Iron Mask."
Deathstroke the Terminator. Actually,
Yeah,
exactly.
They'll never admit that Thor is based off of Nordic mythology.
No, they do.
Well, Thor's public domain, so anyone can do a Thor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the DC has a Thor too. But they don't really use him that much.
Really?
Yeah, the DC has a bunch of
that's a
gods
shame.
as well.
But in Marvel's case, everything about Thor is an admission that he's based off of Nordic mythology.
Right.
Up to and including his name.
Well, except for the fact that Thor
and the name of his hammer.
in the Nordic myth was black-haired.
Yes.
He was
As was Odin.
As was Odin, exactly. Odin was the great betrayer. He wasn't the good all-father. He was the great betrayer of warriors.
Yep. I hated Norse mythology. I enjoyed the stories. I hated reading them because
they're rough.
When you read Greek mythology and then you go to Norse mythology, it's like, come on, man. What are we doing here?
Yeah, it didn't seem
you have to write it this way. It's awesome. The stories are awesome, but it's just the prose is like
it's
so tedious. So tedious.
It's how the language.
My favorite is Egyptian mythology, though. That is by far my favorite.
I'm a fan.
I'm a big fan. Big fan of everything Egypt.
The only thing I really wanted to ask Damien, by the way, it wasn't really that I wanted to ask him anything. It was just about the picture of the picture of Spider-Man and what was it? A picture of Spider-Man and Jesus or something like that. But you missed the whole religious conversation we had when you were gone.
Okay. Right, there was a mimetic little meme cartoon that laid out books in humanity and the influences that the books or the written word has on humans. And if I recall the meme that you're referencing, it takes the book like the Quran and says, here's proof that Allah is real and exists. And then it takes the Bible and says, here, this is proof God exists, this is the book. And then it takes a highly influential comic book and says, hey, here's proof Spider-Man exists, is real,
right.
And I really, really liked this mimetic takeaway on the power of word and I said before the influence that language has on our minds, because it's, you read a book and in your own language, you take these collisions of air molecules or these sounds and the voice and the word, and you make an image of light inside your mind. And that is an amazing experience that should not be just glossed over. So when
our brains are trained to think in images, not in language. The important thing to note is, I like your description of these images as images of light. That's kind of neat. But your supposition is that everything is translated back into imagery. What if we had a language that simply was imagery, and was that? And comic books sort of straddles the line between images and literature, and
I agree.
That there's actually a good. What is that? What is that book by McLeod-ish? Understanding Comics or something like that.
You're talking about the like the seminal book about comics.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't think of the name offhand. I think it is Understanding Comics. It's something along those lines.
By Scott McCloud, and I definitely
Yeah.
recommend it to all the people in this channel right now with us, including Emily, who's falling asleep.
Oh no, I'm not
Look
falling
that up.
asleep. I was
Um,
reading something.
Okay,
What was
gotcha.
it called?
Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud.
All right. Let me
Just
check.
like
Now,
a-
by the way, we're not trying to say that Spider-Man is real by recommending that book.
No.
What do you
please.
mean he's not real?
You know, though, the movies kind of make him real, right? If
Hollywood. Okay.
Hollywood makes them real now, I have little cousins
Why
who
would
dress
you
up like
say
Spider-Man.
Well, it brings to question to the pragmatist or the pragmatics or the realism, the realist. What is real?
Yeah.
And it's become such an existential concept that you could go as far as saying, well, it's a decision in consciousness, and what is consciousness? And that's something even at the frontier of psychology, you have to wonder.
I gotta disagree with you, Damon, but I'm gonna let you make your point.
Okay, no, my point ends up being that consciousness is something that's still being studied. It's the frontier of psychology is the origins of consciousness and what it is. And that's why I say when we look at these things that influence our perception of what is real, I feel important to share an energetic connection with many possibilities at once. And maybe even as a final takeaway on that is I'll believe and think of some very impossible things in this world. And this lets me stand close to things that are nearly impossible, like becoming a billionaire, nearly impossible. But as long as I believe in something even more ridiculous and even more impossible than being a billionaire, then I can approach being a billionaire with a few stepping stones. But if I don't believe in anything wild or ridiculous, and I don't let my mind explore and expand to the realm of infinite possibilities, then I may never get to those next to impossible things because I'm so caught up in the what is possible perspective. So that's a little where I'm coming from there. I believe Spider-Man is real. It's a belief.
So I think that what you're saying now might be contrary to what you were describing with the mimetic. I don't think that they co-sign each other. So the mimetic ultimately, while it may ask the question that you said that is asking, that may be one of the things that it serves to a purpose that it serves. It ultimately takes the former, which is like the Quran, and juxtaposition with the Spider-Man comic book, it creates a situation where the latter criticizes the former negatively. That's what it does first and foremost.
It right off the bat, I agree that it does appear to be a criticism suggesting that the Quran and the Bible are no more than just really in-depth comic books. But then if you take the other opposing viewpoint, and you know, I'd come from a place of many opposing views, that it's actually saying that the comic book could be powerful in the right hands. If you put it in the right hands and you use the mythology and you use the stuff, because there are some comic books that explain mythos, that explain deep mythological human concepts. And in the hands of the right reader, this can open their mind up to many possibilities and even teach them family values and moral codes and ethics.
Damien?
Oh, sorry.
Damien? No. I don't want to cut you off. I respect what you're saying. But what you're saying to me sounds like really? Like, this is not what memes do. Like the meme doesn't expect the subscriber to be able to deep dive. I get what you're saying because me and you are having this conversation, but in passing on Facebook or in social media, the purpose of that meme does not does not compel the subscriber to do this deep dive.
Right, but that's why I shared it as a personal message, knowing
Yeah,
that
no.
there's someone that would dive
I
in.
enjoyed it. You saw I laughed at it. I enjoyed it, but
Yeah.
we had a conversation
If
about. We had a different conversation about how liberals and conservatives, how conservatives criticize religion, predominantly Islam, and how liberals, both negatively, criticize religion, predominantly Christianity. And me and Mike had like this deep conversation, at which point I brought up that meme among other things that have been shared with me from other people as an example. Not that I didn't enjoy it, not that I didn't think it was funny, because I did.
Yeah.
But it was one of many examples. I also gave him an example where a friend of mine had taken Optimus Prime and juxtaposed him next to Jesus, and then listed all of the qualities of both, and then concluded that Optimus Prime was more benevolent than Jesus. And so it was just a bunch of different examples that I had given Mike, because we were having a conversation the other day about.
You know, I think I didn't catch that one. I mean, I know you said it, but I didn't.
Told you Josh did it. Remember,
Yeah, I
my
didn't
friend
catch that
Josh
one as much, but that one's more interesting because that one I don't think is. It's not like necessarily dismissive, right? It's like showing you that for all intents and purposes, like Optimus Prime is like a pretty benevolent person. Like some of the
but my point in that conversation wasn't that it was dismissive, that it was negatively critical. Like, you're taking a fictional character and juxtaposing it next to someone that people believe is not fictional.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So on some level, the purpose that is served is to harm, or on some level indirectly make certain people feel a certain way.
Right.
Well, we don't want to make marginalized people feel certain ways. I certainly don't want to make Jewish people feel a certain way. I certainly don't think it's okay to make Islamic people feel a certain way.
Well,
it's not okay to make anyone feel a type of way.
Christians aren't marginalized in the U.S.
That's why I didn't just say marginalized people. I then went on to say Islamic people, Jewish people, just people. I'm just giving different examples of people. Whether Christians are marginalized or not really isn't the point. When juxtaposed next to the other groups I mentioned.
Right. Well, for those doing the criticizing, it matters though. But I was going to say, Jesus may be a poor example because he's a pretty benevolent character, but I would see someone using that example to maybe criticize like God or something, which, you know, I have to be, you know, I think there has to be room for like criticism of gods, right? Because it's like,
I think there has to be room for criticism of and I don't disagree. I've always said to you that yes, we should critically question these things. But what is, again, like I said to you the other day, what is your intention? What is your motivation? Is it to do so for the purposes of like offending somebody?
It's, well, in my case, it would be to make someone think and to make them rethink, right? Because like we've all been raised with certain beliefs, whether we wanted to or not. And, you know, some people have been raised on white supremacy, right? And it's not like these people wanted to be raised on this thing, but they were. And religion is one of these things that's often forced on people. And like, to look at a God who is simultaneously like jealous, wrathful, loving, willing to like destroy his creation, and like has all of these like hypocrisies and all of these things which kind of like negate each other. I think there's a purpose in that, and I think it can be done in a way to make people think. Now, at the end of the day, you might just say,
what would be your motivate? Why would you want someone to think otherwise?
It's not about think. It's not about think otherwise. I don't do the binary.
Or to even think about it differently.
Because I want people to think about what they're using as their litmus test for what's good, what's evil, and what they've been conditioned to think, right? And
How do
like
you
for
know
some
that that's what?
people,
But how do you know that they're using that as the litmus test?
well, let me just finish because I'm never gonna get my point across this way. So like for some people, it's this idea that for some people it might be the idea that maybe it's not the religion itself, maybe it's the way that it's been brought to me, like Matt was saying, like, you know, maybe it's the way it's been translated or transliterated, or the way that we're not looking at the original Hebrew source material. It could just be that, like it's just a poor translation, like what you guys were saying earlier. Maybe it's just a literal
I think you're
translation.
losing me.
What do you mean?
Oh, because I was just curious as to why you wanted to change the way people think, and I think you're just telling me what you think some people think.
Well, I mean, this is how I'm getting to my point. So I don't know, like it's not a one sentence answer. I mean, my point is that if you just go along with what you've been like fed or raised with, you might get some like negative images, or you might not get a complete story. So by making people think and rethink what they've been taught, you might teach people critical thinking, or you might get them to open their mind. Would be my succinct way of saying it.
So you're saying that you would like to get people to critically think about their beliefs or open their mind about their beliefs?
To open their minds about what they've been taught. I mean, beliefs is a tricky word, because you might find out that there might be some beliefs under the beliefs, right? Like some beliefs are developed more, and some beliefs are just like followed as like what you've been taught, right? Like when you're young and you start asking questions in Sunday school, and they say, all right, Ish, like, stop asking so many questions. The Bible is the Bible. That's what it says. That's what we're taught. That's what we're going to go with. And you're kind of like, okay. But like young Ish, like, you know, might have like some thoughts about that, and might like start reading on their own and trying to figure stuff out. Whereas, you know, young Mark might just go with what he's been told, and he might just be like, what do you mean, Ish? That's what they told us. That's what it says. And then so maybe someone comes along and like asks them some questions, or like makes them rethink. Like, you ever wonder why God is simultaneously like this loving God, but also vengeful, and like why he like basically committed, you know, genocide on his own creation? Do you ever wonder about that? Now he'd be like, well, you know, my God is an awesome God, and I don't ascertain those questions, or it's bigger than us. I don't, you know, it's not for me to wonder.
So what it sounds like to me is what you're describing to me is what groups of Christians do to people who aren't Christians, which I personally don't think it's cool when religious people do it to people who aren't religious or spiritual, try to impose or change or inspire them to think a different way than what they just think or believe, as long as it's not negatively impacting people. Like that's what sounds like what you're describing to me.
It's not an imposition. It's a
no. I'm just saying no. I know, but I think I feel some type of way when like people who subscribe to religion do it to people who don't. So I
proselytize.
Right. And I think it's the same. It's just from a perspective of someone who isn't religious.
Well, here's the difference is, you know, someone like me who poses that question, and I mean, you're right. I'm like sensitive to people's beliefs, so I'm probably, you know, that's not something that I'm going to be doing often. I'm certainly not going door to door. I mean, if you want to like, you know, say that this is like just as bad as that, or that is just as bad as that. Like last time I never saw a bunch of agnostics or atheists going door to door trying to get people to become agnostics or atheists.
Mm-hmm.
Or I never saw a bunch of atheists or agnostics turning people away from like, you know, getting help because people wouldn't profess.
Well, like
agnosticism
I'm not co-signing
atheism.
that. I literally just said that to you. I just didn't say get specific.
Right, but I'm saying in this whole like one thing is as bad as the other. I'm saying that like one group doesn't go hard as the other, right? Like I've never seen.
Well, I think they do.
That's
It's
fine,
just
and
it's just
you have
on
you have
social
that
media.
opinion, but
It's in
on
different
social
ways,
media,
though.
It's in different ways.
I come from a communist country. I can attest to you that that's not the case.
But
well,
what's
in this country, they certainly don't. But I mean, you know,
here's the thing: is that
I hear you about your country though. I mean, we don't have people going door to door, you know, telling people to become agnostic or atheists here. We just don't. We have religious people who do it all the time.
well, yeah, we have Jehovah's
Yeah.
Witnesses and Mormons, but I think like here's the big thing is that you got like
It's like saying cops
Jehovah's
kill
Witnesses.
white people too. Neither is okay.
But here's the thing: it's like you've got the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons knocking on the doors, and you've got like, you know, people turning you away from like a Catholic hospital or like all sorts of other like religious organizations turning non-religious people away. And maybe coming from the other direction, like you say, you don't have like the agnostic hospital turning away the Catholic person, or you don't have atheists or pagans banging on people's doors, but it's kind of
interesting.
Shame people. But hang on, I'm not done. But atheists and agnostics kind of shame people who are religious for being religious, assuming that they're not smart or that they've been brainwashed, and that's a form of prejudice in its own right and peer pressure.
The whole idea of inspiring people to critically think as if they haven't.
Again, Bill Maher. Why I despise him, because he lumps us all into one category that's easy to chop down.
Monolith.
Which is what I wanted to say. It's easy to conflate organization that calls himself Christian with and say, well, I want to talk to this person because that hospital doesn't accept Christians, or because these people from this church go knock on people's doors. So I want to change or perhaps inspire you to think because of what I've seen examples of. Like it's like saying all black people eat watermelon because I saw a black person eating a watermelon.
Here's the difference. With what I'm saying, like inspiring people, there are people who have basically spoken to people who have been inspired and who have, you know, become agnostic or atheist because they took in a lot of information. So this idea that like it's condescending to like say that you can have a conversation with someone and open someone's mind. I mean, you're basically talking to someone who went through that very process.
I don't think I implied anything about being condescending.
Okay. So whatever the negative implication about opening someone's mind by talking to someone about this stuff, or about trying to like open someone's mind to this stuff. For some people, like that's how they've gotten their information. They've had like these discussions. They were like very philosophical discussions, and they thought about this stuff and they formed their own opinion, but they started like going through like these questions like one by one and started like really thinking. Like for some people, it's just about creation. Like a God. Like what is a God? Is a God some a being that has always been around from the beginning? Like billions of years ago and has created everything, and then looks after creation, interfering in creation and trying to like push creation towards a certain thing? Or is it just an original creator that just sits back and sees where it's going to go for billions of years after that? And if that's what it is, then is it really this concept of a God, or is it more of just a creator like a mother or a father is, that no longer
Here's
has
the
any
thing, though.
But
Having those
shouldn't that be
kinds,
something that you explore for yourself?
having those
yeah, but
kinds of
by
discussions
having
is
discussions
one
with
thing.
people is how I explore these things.
Yeah,
Like
but
it's how I got the
I would
how I
like
got
to.
the
What is
information.
the difference between
I-
having a discussion and having somebody tell you that you're wrong, or speak to you in a way like that you made where it seems like they're making the assumption that you haven't thought for yourself? Because
Well,
like
yeah, that wouldn't
that's
be
what
good.
I
That
think
would
is
be
the issue.
yeah, that would be negative.
Does anybody okay? Let me interject here. Carl Sagan. How many people are familiar with Carl Sagan?
I'm
Who?
familiar with him.
Yes.
Carl Sagan.
Who's Carl Sagan?
He's an astrophysicist who
Hold
was
on.
basically like
What's an astrophysicist?
Like Neil deGrasse Tyson before
Neil
Neil
deGrasse Tyson.
No,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Jesus.
Mike knew right away.
Jesus, I fell for it.
No,
Here's the
go
thing,
on,
Anyway,
Raul.
so Carl Sagan had put out one of his Cosmos episodes on something called the Flatlanders. And Flatlanders was about the dimension, the beings in the fourth dimension, which is we live in multiple dimensions. We're a multidimensional reality. And the fourth dimension is something that is I would like to say above, but that's not correct. That's not really correct. It's something that overlays our reality. And he talked about the way that a fourth dimensional being would talk to us, which are the three-dimensional beings. And if you look at it with a critical eye and with the eye of this going on, if you're a religious person or a person that at least is open to religious ideas, then this sounds very familiar. Some of the things like the burning bush could be explained. Some of the things like incarnation of gods could be explained. And it was very enlightening to watch this not too long ago, like 5 years ago. And
Hold on, Raul. I think I have a disconnect. Like I don't know how you got from communication from the fourth dimension to where we're at right now. I think like there's some part of the chain.
Well, because Flav was talking about what is a god? What is God? What is God?
No. I mean, in your description, you were saying that if we look at it from a critical eye.
If you look at it from the eye of a religious person or a person that believes in something a little more than that, then Carl Sagan's explanation makes total sense.
But what was his explanation?
His explanation was that it's long. It's like a 2-hour long documentary, and it's just him at a table. It's not very exciting, but the ideas are exciting. The ideas are that they would communicate through energy, through thoughts that imprint on the mind, that their communication would seem like all inspiring revelations of religious text. That's what I'm trying to get at. Perhaps that is more in line with what somebody like Flav is asking about the nature of God. Maybe God is not because God was actually interpreted in the early Hebrew Bible as Elohim, many, it means, and we could only assume that this creature, this thing, is a being of the fourth dimension at this point.
Elohim, one for many.
One for many.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure that that's getting to what my question. My question was, is God simply just a creator, or is he this like interferer that's supposed to help things go along well?
I thought your
Um,
question was rhetorical.
I think it depends on the person and what you believe. Like, I think God is up to the interpreter.
I don't believe. Let me be very serious for a moment. I don't. My personal beliefs is that we don't. There's no such thing as a supernatural. There are things that are unexplained at the moment, but our science is quickly catching up, and we will see something in the future that can explain next to everything. But if God is a creature that can be quantifiable, I believe that it will be discovered to be something that is in this fourth dimension that I was talking about.
See, I don't really go into my beliefs. What I choose not to do though is impose them on people.
Yeah, I'm not imposing. I'm just saying.
No, not you.
Oh.
I'm just like I was just speaking up for me. Like I choose not to impose them on
Speaking
people.
in the general sense.
Right, in a general sense, I choose not to allow. Like I don't try to change how people think. I don't try to. I don't like to. And not only that, I don't let it cloud my judgment or my ability to critically think on things.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot
And
with
go
belief.
on.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
No, Damien, please.
I was gonna say with belief, it's oftentimes belief is looked at as something that limits your perspective. When you believe in something, oftentimes you've settled for or compromised for another idea, and you didn't explore it further. You just believed it, and that was good enough. And that's why when you take something like an idea versus a belief, you can see some human growth and development. Um, when I was even saying before, like, I believe Spider-Man is real, well, I can just leave it at that. But if I get into the idea of it, like, well, what is a Spider-Man, or what are the events surrounding the story of Peter Parker, or the story that creates these things, or then even going into something like God, like I could believe that there is a god or a goddess or an omnipotent, omniscient being. But if I get into the idea of, well, what is an omnipotent, omniscient being, now it's like we have a means of discussion. So belief oftentimes can end up limiting or halting a conversation or discussion. And I think that it's cool to even reflect on some of what Raul was saying with this fourth dimensional, fourth density idea, because it gives the idea of a discussion. It could even be something as simple as saying, like, well, what is a dream? And what are we experiencing in these dreams? Um, do these dreams, just like anything else, serve meaning and purpose? And that could even touch back to a little bit what Flavius is saying here with the idea of what is God. Is God meaning and purpose, this omnipotent entity, or is it just the bow that shot the arrow into space and just watched, like a parent figure, like a parent that
A
holds back
distant parent. Yeah.
and just watches it flourish, and and learns, observes itself. We can't dismiss, as humans, we truly are some finely tuned observational instruments. We see it in a very finely tuned spectrum of light, and it's a huge electromagnetic spectrum to begin with. So to look at the perceptive details of our existence and kind of embrace the idea of what purpose and meaning is, that's where I feel there is the idea of these otherwise difficult concepts that we could just leave as a belief, but as you're saying, like, to impose a belief on someone is difficult. To share an idea with somebody can be fun, but also dangerous. People have been killed for dangerous ideas.
Well, I will say that people who practice or subscribe to religions, and especially there's a level of fanaticism where they certainly, even as Mike said and as you just said, while it may be difficult, they certainly do go out of their way to impose their beliefs on people, and all the way up to legislation.
Dominion. Yeah.
So
They certainly do.
Exactly.
That's something I'm not discounting because they do, and
So
I'm not cool with it.
I was going to say that,
So
in some cultures,
and even co-sign what Mike said because they do, and they will try to impose their beliefs on people, and if they can't get you to subscribe to what they're saying to you, they'll try to do it legislatively. One of the things that I criticize Christians for, I told a friend of mine this some weeks ago, the problem with Christians is that they don't vote against things that they don't believe. Excuse me, against things that are wrong. They always vote for things that they believe. So they'll vote in many cases for the one guy who supports the one anti-abortion, even though everything else that he does is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but
Or they'll vote
he's
against their own
abortion, so I'm
economic
voting for him.
interests.
He's against gay marriage, so I'm voting for him. Wait a minute. How many Christians embrace Donald Trump? And nothing about this dude is like.
Yeah, he's
I mean,
nothing about this dude at all.
He's
Is
a fraud.
representative of what you say you believe. You know what I mean?
Matt, I don't know if you mentioned in a previous reflection, has a lot of experience with churches and the imposition of belief. I don't know if he has. I see he's moving around a bit. But
I just wanted to squeeze in really quick. Like in some cultures, it's cool to ask people these questions, including strangers. It's just like asking these philosophical questions is a way to get to know someone, but certainly in some cultures, it's not. Some cultures, like, people do not want their religion questioned. People do not want to have a philosophical conversation about their religion, and that's fine. But I've certainly been in, situations where I've like really enjoyed thinking about these things in like totally new ways because someone like, didn't mind.
So Mike, you and I have had conversations where you've asked me questions and I went on a long explanation of things, especially some months back when we were first doing the show. And I remember a conversation we had in particular. So I just want to say that your position and where you're coming from and everything that you're saying, I genuinely and generally agree with. I do. What I was saying, just to make it so I highlight the differences. What I'm saying and what I'm critical of is when people. That's why I say intent and motive. When people intend or pretend to be doing what you're genuinely doing, and then they preface their questions with things that are offensive, negative, make caricatures out of someone's belief. You understand what I'm saying? In order to have these conversations or provoke this type of thinking.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
You know how I feel about certain people like the Bill Maher's and
Right.
Says the person who talked about the babies in the baskets.
Yeah, that was me. I want to put all the Mexican babies in baskets and send them back across the river.
Oh, ish.
I'm convinced. No, you did that because you wanted to see how far you could push.
You missed that show, Raul. You didn't know that happened.
I didn't. I heard about the show, but I didn't hear about it was Mexican babies. I just thought it was random.
It was the Dreamers. No, it was the Dreamers.
The Dreamers and
she's
babies.
like, what do we do? I'm like, listen, put them in baskets, give them a stipend, a couple pieces of bread, and push them across the river.
And this whole time, I'm trying not to get angry. When I think, meanwhile, you're trying to see what you have to say to get me angry.
Mike had
a trickster. Ish is a
trickster.
You
mean like fucking Moses?
Mike had the best line. He's like, they put Moses in the basket. You got a problem with Moses?
Yeah, like,
so great. He's like, you got a problem with Moses?
Meanwhile, I'm just like, guys, you're sounding awfully xenophobic right now.
Yo, she was trying her best to keep her composure. She's like, this is sounding awfully xenophobic. I'm like, what? The basket? pushing babies across the river. I'm like, yeah, just round them all up.
It's okay. You got Hurricane Emily at a later point.
None of this was serious. We were just playing devil's advocate with Emily.
I know. Now I know that.
Something interesting to make things more of a discussion with religious sanctions, I'll call them, because it kind of separates people from talking about it. Many religions don't even like to use the word God in and of itself, or the mentionings of their figures, or even the depiction or illustration of some of their figures may be found offensive and are heavily rejected. But to take something interesting like Thanos is a very interesting character in the comic book world, and I like making a comparison with Thanos and the Death Star and thinking like, well, which one is more powerful, Thanos or the Death Star? Both, serve a role in destroying planets and taking life away. And it's a curious question that really brings in life and intention and what is the purpose of, the Death Star is in some respects.
Thanos is certainly more benevolent.
Right. Well, so because the Death Star is playing a role in politics a little bit, and Thanos is playing a role in, could you say religion? Could Thanos be his own religious?
Well, he is a god by all rights. In the Marvel universe, he's considered a godlike figure.
Yeah, he's an abstract
not just for his power, but for the position he holds.
So what's interesting is when I drew this comparison through a few opposing viewpoints, because originally I wanted to compare Thanos to God itself through the books and their teachings, but that became kind of edgy with some people. So I dialed back to, well, all right, let's throw Thanos in comparison with the Death Star, and it became a science versus religion moment. And in the poll, just to give you guys a little poll example, the Death Star ends up being more powerful as a planet destroyer. But when it comes to toe-to-toe, head-to-head, Thanos destroys the Death Star, and the Death Star cannot destroy Thanos. So it's a really interesting thing. More people end up agreeing, in this case, the representation of science does destroy planets more for what its purpose and intent is. But Thanos, the religious value or the god, has more versatility to him and has more.
I would say though that the one thing that you're missing from your analogy is that the Death Star is a threat. Thanos is a promise. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
There's some nuances there too, because Thanos is also wise enough not to do the worst thing.
Yes.
Meaning, like if you look at the whole movie with the Infinity Gauntlet, what a lot of people don't know is that after that whole thing went down in the comics, Thanos was then entrusted as a member of the Infinity Watch.
Wow.
Because he knew what could be done with the gems, and so he was wise enough to know not to take that course again or allow anyone else to take that course. So he was one of the members of the Infinity Watch.
And Marvel loves his redemption stories. Marvel absolutely loves redemption stories, which I like. This is part of the reason I like Marvel more.
And one other note too. There's an interesting comparison. Marvel does have its equivalent to God.
Yes.
Okay.
Known as the one above all.
Really, that's a character.
Yeah, it's a little Stan Lee insertion because Stan Lee is, of course, a very excuse me, I'm sorry, it's still fresh. He was a very devout Jew, so.
Yeah. So in Marvel, there's a hierarchy of what is known as abstract entities, and while to the common person in comic books and outside of comic books, Thanos would be at the top. There's like 20 or 30 beings that are well over Thanos.
The Tribunal, Beyonder, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, death, eternity, infinity.
I was wondering, where would, we're talking about Hydra before. Hive is the mythical character or the inhuman character associated with Hydra, if I'm remembering correctly. Where would Hive stand as far as comparison power to someone like Thanos?
Hive.
I mean, I may
don't know who Hive is.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Hive. So like in the formation of Hydra, and again, my comic book knowledge is actually strangely scattered. I mean, I literally had all my comic books ripped up and scattered and torn as a kid by a friend I brought over. Yeah, it
Girlfriend issues.
No. It was a friend
Sorry, Emily.
I had over.
What? Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Yeah, it's okay. No, just saying my comic book knowledge is a reflection of like physically, some what happened to my comic books. I had a fair collection that just got destroyed by a friend who went through some kind of fit. I don't know, bipolar psychosis type fit. He just like destroyed them all, like ripped them apart, put other parts and pieces. It was the strangest thing. I did forgive him, and I overcame the emotional loss of comic books. It kind of was like a strange lesson on materialistic value in my life at a young age, but my knowledge of comic books have kind of also been a little scattered as a result. Hive, I believe, was a character that members of Hydra, as though Hydra were some kind of cult, they were trying to bring bless
you.
They were trying to bring Hive to Earth, to take over Earth as some kind of inhuman, like almost virus, you could say, in some respects, and that Hive would take over the planet. They never succeeded, if I remember correctly. Many sacrifices and critical characters died, preventing the insertion of Hive. But this character seemed like a god or a super powerful interdimensional space alien.
So the problem with Hive.
Yeah.
Hive is powerful on a given instance, but relatively weak because Hive can improve the host that he has to have a host body, and he can improve the host, but he can't do like impossible things. Like he can't, if the host can't fight, he can't fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas Thanos is like an abstract entity. So what Marvel does is they don't call them gods. Once you get to a certain level or on a certain level of power, they call them abstracts. Oh. Things that are not quantifiable, right? They literally say things like power, reality manipulation, nth degree.
Okay.
Which pretty much means you can do whatever you want. You understand what I'm saying? Like literally, they'll say, reality manipulation to the nth degree would be some of the descriptions for the power levels of like abstracts. Thanos does not have that, doesn't even have reality manipulation to the nth degree. Thanos can't manipulate reality at all. Okay. He has cosmic power that is beyond the scope of most life forms on most planets' understanding.
Yeah.
For sure. But he can't manipulate, whereas like the entity that he is in love with, that he does everything for and serves, death, she can. She is the embodiment of death. She's death. Eternity, for instance, who is her brother.
So the woman is the woman is the embodiment of death.
She's death. I mean, that's just the form she takes. She can be whatever she wants to be. She chooses to look like a female Grim Reaper. Eternity looks like the universe in the shape of a bipedal being. But he literally, if you look at him, you see the cosmos in his body. These are beings that are far above Thanos. Just without an infinity gauntlet, they're far above Thanos. And Thanos is far above most of the Marvel universe.
So Thanos is shooting above his, he's kind of, trying to play with someone who's on a greater level than he is.
Say again?
He's kind of like, he's not on her level.
Death.
So so the story with Death and Thanos is one of the best stories.
In love with Deadpool?
Yeah, she is. That's why Deadpool can't die. But the thing is, so Thanos has been in love with Death. He loves her, and she never says a word to him. We don't know if she likes him. We don't know if she tolerates him. She never says a word with him. We do know that every time Thanos dies, he gets resurrected because she doesn't want him either. She doesn't want him to be with her, or she really cares about him and wants him to live, but we don't know because she never acknowledges him ever. Like she doesn't ever speak to him. Like he snapped half the universe away to appease her. You see what I'm saying? Like everything that he does is he's trying to win her heart, and she's never acknowledged him. One time she acknowledged him. There was a situation that was called the Annihilation Wave. I don't know if you remember this, Raul, but like the universe was being destroyed by this other. There was this other existence that was like this negative existence, and it didn't know death. It just no one ever died in this existence, and it was eating away at the mainstream Marvel universe. And in order to defeat it, Thanos went there and killed himself. And the moment he died, death was able to exist there. Whoa. And she just destroyed she destroyed it all. And then brought Thanos back to life. But that's how Thanos saved like the Marvel universe. He kind of went there and killed himself, thus allowing
the sin of not death. Like
yeah, he goes there and kills himself so that he could introduce death to that existence.
Wild.
And then she just killed everything. Everything in that existence, she just killed it.
Also, I don't know if she's already mentioned this. I had to take a little break, but Thanos is interesting because he's one of the few people in direct contact with an abstract as a sentient being, and that's an interesting thing. I wonder if they're going to bring it up in the Avengers later on.
I thought they were going to use Gila as the death that he was, that he was in love with.
Yes,
from Thor.
From Thor, yes. That would have been interesting as well.
Because she's the Norse god of death. However, she's only able to be the Norse god of death because the abstract entity death allows her to be.
Right.
See, this is interesting, like mythology to talk about, and it's really opening us up to talk about life and death principles. And this is why I really appreciate comic books for what they do and what they bring to life and offer us.
Well, I did want to say to you really quick, and then I'm going to cede the floor. I wanted to say to you really quick, Damien, that when we were talking about your meme, from the purpose that it serves outright to just the casual subscriber, it does serve that purpose. For our conversation, it serves a different purpose that I respect and appreciate. But we can only get there through conversation by you telling me you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's conversation is the key ingredient. Open, honest communication is the key to the development of human growth.
It's the key to everything.
God knows there's not enough open, honest communication these days.
Oh, that's always what you'll always get for me.
And
to the point where I'm
a I thought we would get lewd stories of your high school life.
Guys, in the spirit of open communication and shit,
I
need to communicate y'all. I gotta go to bed.
Yeah.
All right, Matthew.
All right,
it was good to meet you as well.
Good to meet you.
All right, my gray zone friend. Will we see you again?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
But I have to go.
Good night, bro.
Yeah, you look dead, my friend.
Yeah,
it's the wine. It's the red wine.
Got a lot of essential work.
Red wine.
6 a.m. wake up.
Yeah, Mike, sing him off with red wine.
There you go,
brother. Yeah.
Damien, you can sing too, huh?
I could sing a little bit.
Oh no, don't.
My hand.
We're not starting this again.
We're not gonna do Crazy Oki tonight. But now that I know,
it's always coming back to like who has what in their hands. When you put good tools in the hands of good people, they make good things. But we get into a little good bad paradigm because the thing is just a thing, the tool is just a tool, and the person is a person. A book in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use it or maybe intends on misusing it I mean, they can extract or cherry pick whatever principles out that they want to suit whatever agenda or narrative they have to push. And that's why I stress frequently about how we are affected by corporate sponsorships, religious sanctions, and political protections, because these things limit our open, honest communications. They close down some of the openness, and they take away or sometimes inundate us with too much information to be honest about, like things that I'd have to say, I don't have a very good opinion on this because there's too much to look into at the moment or not enough information to add.
What if the Force as a religion? Have you heard about that?
That's what George Lucas has tried to avoid forever. He honestly he did because he realized that it was such a powerful concept that people would try and follow it. And so in like New Zealand, the Force literally has like 20,000 adherents. They name it as their official religion.
Yep.
Interesting.
And as an official religion, they get all recognized rights.
Yes.
And do they have a church and everything?
I haven't investigated that far, but I do know that there's people that ascribe themselves as Force adherents.
Yeah, I've heard
it's
of
like
that.
people who subscribe to the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Yeah, but more serious. They're serious about their devotion to the Force. The Church of the Spaghetti Monster is just to make fun of religion.
Right.
Yeah. The some of the principles of the Jedi Code or the foundation of the Force as a religion
Buddhist.
Yeah, I was going to say it's borrowing from, cherry picking some information from some very strong and very powerful statements. Again, in the hands of the wrong people, can really go in the wrong direction.
But that's when you have the Sith Church, Damien.
But I was going to say, have they founded a Sith religion?
Yeah, but there's only 2 of them, so it's fine.
Someone will.
Two at a time.
There have been already.
2 at a time.
It's usually the Sith were a result of heresy, master and apprentice that left the council. So technically, the Sith are Jedi. It's just that they don't subscribe to a council.
Actually, both traditions are in the lore of the Star Wars universe. Both adherents are groupings of people that were in a former group called the Jedi, which was with an AI, and so they were like they were the ones that Luke alludes to in the Last Jedi.
Because the Jedi, interestingly enough, and this might add to your thinking on this in a good way, Damien, the Jedi AI were oppressive. While they were benevolent, but their tenets were oppressive, right? You couldn't subscribe to all of the emotions that humans are passionate about, like passion, love, which caused the sect of Sith to leave.
Yes, I mean, literally that alone was a part of the code, is that there is no emotion. Emotion doesn't even exist. It is just a lack of peace. And the only thing that exists is peace. So
I will tell you that I openly wear my Sith code T-shirt everywhere, and people question me, and I go, "Well, what do you think? Take a read." And they read it, and they're like, "Hey, I agree with that. Well, you're Sith. That's the reason."
Yeah, it's interesting to think too. Like, there's a lot of people forming around Satanist or satanic church cult followings that say, well, these principles apply to the modernity or the way we live our lives. You can't argue through religious sanctions. It limits your ability to debate. That's why the open discussion becomes so important, and to bring the individual back to some sense of transparent accountability, where we can step away from these subscriptions, these beliefs that can oftentimes limit our ways we interact with each other, outside of whatever church or following or whatever idol or whatever worship or practice that may interfere with our human growth and development. It's fascinating. What a great point to have brought up that. I mean, if we were to form our own church, what would it be like? If we were to form our own temple, what would it look like? If we had our own religious doctrine, what would it say? You know,
I'd be Benny Gesserit.
What's that?
I'd be Benny Gesserit
Benny Gesserit
from Dune.
It'll make more sense in about a year when the movie releases.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So the movie will do a lot to it'll do to Dune what the Lord of the Rings movies by Peter Jackson did for Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Or when you watch on that Ish episode where we
talk about it like extensively. Yeah.
Hey, shameless plug, huh, Mike? Shameless plug.
Emphasis on the shameless, right?
Is that already an episode I missed, or is
yes,
that
it is an episode.
Yes. Okay.
It was just me,
There's probably two, but
yeah.
Implying that anybody who hears this should listen to that too.
And Dune will come up again.
Okay. Yeah, I notice in my feed these pop up. Sometimes the ones that go into 2 and 3 hours, I'll end up skipping through or multitasking, or I end up getting onto a playlist. I did notice the 40-minute or the hour-long ones are more digestible, just as input as a listener myself.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
That's I appreciate that. We try to take the ones that go hours long and break them up into hours.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's coming along. I like this cast. It's a pleasure being a part of and reflecting back.
I have had not this much fun on a podcast for forever.
Oh, that's awesome.
I need to use my timing skills to tell you to stop and start after every hour.
I'm feeling warm and fuzzy feelings.
Well, that requires a hug, sir. No, I'm kidding. Joke.
How about you, Flav? You feeling warm and fuzzy feelings?
I'm feeling good.
I can't hug Flav because two fat guys rugging together just makes the room warm.
Well,
no offense, Flav.
The world needs a little bit more warmth, but
That's
not
true.
any more COVID.
You know, Ro, you'd be happy in Ghana apparently because you'd be rich.
Apparently, I'd be okay. Until they find out that I'm dirt poor, and then they'd be like, forget it. This guy's a liar.
He's like, hey, Flav, let's go ball in Ghana.
Now,
we're on baller status
here's
here.
My question.
We're like Big Pun and Biggie.
Fat Joe.
Right.
Or
Fat
Big Pun and
Joe,
Biggie.
exactly. I'm Fat Joe.
Yeah.
Well, Fat Joe is more like medium-sized Joe now.
Well, that's exactly. I'm more medium-sized, but hey.
They were supposed to do an album together. Big Pun and No, sorry. Fat Joe and Biggie. Fat Joe and Biggie were supposed to do an album together.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
Too bad. Too bad.
Joe would have stepped his game up because, Joe now is so good. I mean, he was good then, but he's so good now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, the longer you do it, the more you master the skill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I don't know, he kind of sprinkles his goodness throughout. I mean, I definitely like early Joe. I like Jealous One's Envy Joe. Probably.
Yeah, you would recommend it. I did listen to the album. I liked it. It was fun.
Jealous One's Envy?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Not to be confused with Jealous One's Still Envy.
No. I know you said not to, so I didn't listen to that one.
Yeah.
The sales on that didn't reflect how good that album was.
Oh, not even close. Not even close.
That's like the best of the Beastie Boys was probably Paul's Boutique, the last
my
album.
God.
And,
no, that was the second album.
Yeah.
That was the second hip-hop album.
Wasn't that before they got real popular?
No,
yes.
They got real popular with the first album.
Yeah, yes, for their rock hip hop fusion, yeah.
That first album?
Yeah,
with Brass Monkey and
yes.
Yeah, that album was great, but Paul's Boutique is so underrated.
Yeah, Paul's
for
Boutique
its greatness.
Is like the Radiohead of their collection.
Yeah, that was their second hip hop album. That was but it's so different than what you would expect from a hip hop album because now they had made it and they were able to do what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
All right, I bow down to my elders in knowing the order of hip hop.
You have to respect your elders, dear. Sorry.
That song Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego.
Yeah.
Was my joint. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. That was my joint.
They were all good though. They were all good.
Yeah, that album. You're right. Paul's Boutique is.
It's all good, man. You can't. I actually like Ill Communication maybe better,
Mhm.
but Paul's Boutique is just so different and so well done.
I'm surprised Mike isn't chiming in on this. Did you not listen to Paul's Boutique, Mike?
Paul's Boutique. I don't know it by album title. I mean, I know the album title, but I don't know the album songs on Paul's Boutique.
That's fair.
I listen to Ill Communication.
You were done after License to Ill?
I listened to them on the radio. I just never listened to them. I just never bought their stuff, so I didn't know it well enough to know like the individual names of the songs, except for No Sleep Till Brooklyn and Brass Monkey and Girls and stuff like
License to Ill.
License to Ill, yeah. Which was very popular, very popular.
See, I remember getting whatever. I can't for the life of me remember what the name of the album was, but the fourth one, the one after Ill Communication, like
the one with Intergalactic.
yes,
Intergalactic Planetary.
yeah, that one.
The one with Sabotage and all that.
No,
No, that's
that.
Ill License to Ill.
Oh, that's still License to Ill. Okay.
Which is great. It's a great
the
album.
one with Intergalactic on it. I remember I was in like middle school or something, and my
No,
parents
that had a bunch of good stuff on it.
and my
You
parents
were
wanted
in
to
middle
get me a
school when
CD.
Intergalactic came out?
Maybe high school.
Oh,
Maybe
so
like
old. I'm
first
so
or second
old.
year.
That's all it tells me. That's all it tells me.
But anyways, I remember like my parents buying it for me as a present because it was the only rap music that they could find that didn't have a Tipper Gore sticker on it.
That didn't have black people in it?
No, they didn't. They didn't want to be seen as. Well, I think
They could have gotten you DOS Effects at the same time. DOS Effects came out with an album that was all clean to fight that, and it sold horribly. It was so bad. Yeah, it was the one after their main thing hit.
Oh,
it was the one after, and it was all clean.
Why don't I remember this Tipper Gore phase? That must have been in Germany.
I think.
Well, I mean, it just had a sticker on it, right?
It's the parental advisory sticker. Like I call it the Tipper Gore sticker because it was her idea.
Yeah, it was a parental. You remember the parental advisory sticker?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I didn't know that was a Tipper Gore thing.
No, no one called it that. She just called it that. But I mean, it was her, right? It was her thing.
It was her contribution to the cause.
I remember because of those stickers that caused me to get carded in a record store.
In order to buy a good album?
Excuse me, ma'am. I know you want to buy liquor and cigarettes, but really, we got to card you. We got to card you again.
I got carded in the record store buying Nelly's Country Grammar album.
Damien.
They were like, are you old enough for this, young lady?
When you were 17, what was on your playlist?
When I was 17, what was on my plate?
Playlist.
Oh, my playlist.
Let me guess. Hey Ya by Outkast?
Interesting. I actually did like Outkast a bit. I don't know if I'd necessarily identify songs and bands. I mean, the Beastie Boys were a pretty big influence for me because I did enjoy lyricists. Like, I loved lyrical progression, but more than anything, believe it or not, my heart was with classical music. It really starts with me listening to public radio or 91.1 on the radio station and listening to classical music at night. I really appreciated a lot of the works, learning more about Chopin and his relation with Franz Liszt, and getting into...
Liszt is incredible. It's one of my favorites.
What do you think about Mozart being black?
Wasn't that Beethoven?
Was that Beethoven?
It wouldn't change anything for me, to be honest. Honestly, we could even debate and speculate on it.
You strike me as someone who has like a big underground jazz catalog.
Interesting.
On vinyl.
On vinyl, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, and vinyl actually did have a great quality sound. Unfortunately, I've never been able to keep a record player around. We had one once, and
He's like, what do
somebody
you mean
broke
record
the
player?
wheel.
Wait, I
Well,
want
that-
Well,
to
it's a
get into
record player.
I want to get into this. Why Beethoven being black wouldn't mean anything to you. I want to get into that.
it just wouldn't change my perspective on the music and the production value and the beauty of the
guy-
work. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who wrote the Three Musketeers and
Dumas?
Dumas, yeah, Alexander Dumas was a mulatto, was
Yeah.
a courtier's fling with a servant, and resulted in probably one of the most brilliant novelists of of English language. Period, French language first off, but
I have to say though that is a very white sentiment. That whole it doesn't mean anything to me that Beethoven was black. Like one of the premier composers, like one of the biggest, baddest composers of our time, who's considered
Well, not
a
our
legend.
time.
Well, sorry, you're right.
We're old, Flav, but not
What are
that
you
old.
doing? What are you doing, Flay?
Okay.
Flav's trying to kill us, Ish. Look how old we are now.
Oh, by the way, what's a typewriter?
Of all times, that's considered a legend. If he were like black all this time and we didn't know it, there would be some importance to that, because it's either like, like, why didn't we know that? Were they trying to like keep this information from us? Did he live like this secretive life where he couldn't like really be who he was? Did this influence his music at all? Like all that stuff would be interesting to me.
Yeah, I feel that, culture, as you're saying, culture does play a big role in music, especially when you're talking about the influence of a foundation. Things about Beethoven's music stood out to me as different from some of the other classical composers. I'm more of a fan of Baroque composers, if you want to get into it, just because I love the virtuosic play styles. Like, that's why I mentioned Franz Liszt, is just because he was a virtuosic player.
Rachmaninoff,
Yeah.
those type of
Beethoven
people.
wrote such complicated composers that people refused to play for his symphonies sometimes because it was so difficult to do what he was asking them to do. And it's important to also consider with Beethoven that he was hard of hearing. He developed a difficulty hearing, and this meant a lot of what he was composing and writing was math. He was mathematically putting things together.
Theoretical, yeah.
Yeah, and this is why some of his compositions became difficult to follow. But perhaps the most beautiful thing to note on Beethoven's style, whether it was a cultural thing that caused him to think this way, or just straight up an individual thing. And that's what I mean by I would be unfazed by understanding his cultural background, because I see him as a truly unique individual.
I would also assume that he probably was removed from his culture.
Right. Yeah. I don't think culture really had a big influence on him, which freed him up and allowed him to make certain decisions and compositional movements that other artists didn't think of. The most famous being his Fifth Symphony, where everyone gets that dun 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 dun. But the beauty of some of his compositions was he accounted on putting his audience to sleep and waking them up. So a lot of what he wrote played into the mind of the listener. And that's why I say it's so interesting to look at what he was writing as math and to see some of his music as a form of communication. And that's not something you always see. Mozart plays with it a little bit, but he's literally playing with it, and he's very good at what he
favorite
does.
song by Mozart is that joint that goes Amadeus, Amadeus. Amadeus, Amadeus, Amadeus.
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Yeah.
I have to say, it's funny that you mentioned about Beethoven, like putting people to sleep and then waking them up. Because
Yeah.
I swear to God, my brother must be like the only person in the universe who fell asleep both during a performance of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, and he also fell asleep during the Phantom of the Opera.
Well, I'd fall asleep on that too.
What?
Right. And
How
that
do you
was
fall asleep during the Phantom of the Opera? It's loud.
Phantom of the Opera. That was that Bach, if I'm not mistaken? Johann?
It's not good.
No, isn't it?
I forget that one.
Isn't it the young? He's a guy that's alive now.
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Andrew
Oh, sorry.
Lloyd Webber. Yeah,
Oh, I'm thinking of The Fugue. I'm thinking of
yeah. The Fugue is different. Yeah,
right, but uses the organ and uses that
yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
movement.
It's
Okay.
what he
Phantom-
plays. The Fugue is what he plays in Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah,
Okay,
like how
sorry, I
could
was wondering why I was connecting the two.
Yeah.
even if it's not, even if it's bad, like, and I don't think the Phantom of the Opera is great at all. But even if it's bad, how could you sleep while you've got an organ going?
I slept. The only
I was
thing
in
I've
the
ever
military.
slept for. The only thing I ever slept for. It's going to be ridiculous. It was meatballs with a side of cloudy, or I forgot what
Oh,
the
that's
Cloudy
name
with
of
a
it.
chance.
kids
Cloudy
thing.
with a side
The
of
stupid.
meatballs.
Somebody took me to the kids thing, and I was so tired from politics that I just fell asleep the entire time. But I
You
had a
didn't miss
great
anything.
nap. I
You didn't
had a
miss
great
anything.
nap.
You probably had a better dream than that stupid animation.
Somebody was very somebody I would live with was very into the series, so I was like, okay, I'll go with you, no problem. And then I was like, I 5 minutes in, I saw some cloudy meatball mess in the sky, and I went, yeah, maybe not. I just passed out.
I would have
You-
been like, am I tripping on something?
You missed nothing.
I've heard
It
from
was
other
a better
people.
book.
I have one quick question that segues from this real quick. How many people in this particular Zoom saw Harry Potter when they were kids?
Not when not when we were kids.
Yeah,
Kids?
I saw the first Harry Potter, and I read the first book. I never got into this series.
Were you a kid when you saw it?
Honestly, you say that, and it's funny to think like my inner child has been very well kept. I still enjoy things with that mind, so I would say, yeah, I was a kid.
Were you a physical kid?
Were you legally a child?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I guess I was, under adult supervision.
I mean, I don't know.
How
I
about
think
you,
I was
Emily?
17. I can't remember if I was 17 or 18 when I saw the first movie. So I
How about
guess
you,
I would
Mike?
say a borderline adult.
I was never into it, so I mean, I may have finally watched like most of one or half of one semi recently, but it was never my thing.
I took my daughter to see them.
All of
What'd you
them.
think?
I was an adult.
Well, what did she think? More important.
Well, she had read the book, so she liked it.
Great.
She was insistent. That was our thing. Like every time a Harry Potter movie came out, we just went to go see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked reading the first book was interesting, and then my mom had got me the second book, and I actually even liked that. Chamber of Secrets, I think it was called.
Yeah,
But
Chamber
then-
of Secrets is the second one.
Yeah, it was good. But when I was shown the third book, I immediately got like a impulse to reject the whole remaining series. I even was like, as far as it goes, like the ending should be predictable enough. I rewrote the whole story in my head, thinking like, magic is a cyclic idea. There's cycles of it. We come up with our own schools. This is describing things in our dreams. I liked the use of Latin in it. I liked the use of some of the lore into the universe. But something about just looking at the third book, I don't know, was that Prisoner of Azkaban? Was that
Yeah.
It was like
That's actually my
Sorcerer's Stone.
favorite.
No, Sorcerer's
Sorcerer's-
Stone was the first.
first one? That one I liked, and I did like the second one. But yeah, when I think it was Prisoner of Azkaban or something like that. That I was immediately repelled. I averted. I dropped the whole thing. My mom continued to buy the books. I said, "Stop! I'm not reading these anymore. This is not working for me." And I think I ended up seeing the final movie or something. But you know what? The thing about the Harry Potter culture as a leaving note on it for me is Quidditch. I love the idea of
Many people
Quidditch.
do.
I
Many people
like,
do.
yeah, just like it reminded me of this old school movie. I think it was called Skull and it's something. It's a game where you have to get a skull on a stick, and there's guys with like nets and swords, and they're trying to. And there's the runner.
Oh, For the Blood of Heroes with Rutger
Oh, man.
Hauer.
So good. And the idea of the golden snitch reminded me of that movie a little bit. I was like, wow, this is cool.
Minus the blood, the blood.
Everyone in the viewer audience, thumbs up for Raul and Damien for the Rutger Hauer reference.
Yeah,
it was good. It was I mean, that was a great movie. I have so many images from that movie. I saw that at a young age as a kid. You know, I saw.
He did so many good
game.
movies, and no one talks about him.
Yeah.
Like
Sad.
he's in like all the cool movies, like Lady Hawk and I Come in Peace, and like he's in so many great films, and it's like
Bounty Hunter.
Rutger who?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go on.
Poor guy.
But the you know, because you even had like, what is it, the bludgeons, or there's like there's the quaff. The quaff hits people off their thing, and you got to try to knock the quaff or whatever. It got my mind thinking about inventing new games. I was like, you know what? We could just make up games. You could make up games with different positions and people doing things, and that kind of got my gears going for like, how can I make up new sports?
In the 70s, that was very popular. Make up new types of games and stuff.
Yeah.
That people could play.
I felt like that was a good takeaway with the Harry Potter series for me. Was
That's how we got stupid games like Wiffle Ball.
Yeah. Can modify Wiffle Ball a little bit.
All right, guys, I have to sign off for the night. You guys take care.
Yeah.
All right, Ralph.
It is getting late. It's true.
I got hands full of comic books, so.
Did you
hands
end
full
up?
of comic books, eh?
You ended up checking out that lady. I saw she posted a bunch of comic books. I wasn't sure where she was or what her deal was, but I thought, man, this could be.
Yeah, I was hoping she messaged. She said she's putting together a list.
Nice, cool. Yeah, I thought right away too, and I saw the boxes, and I was like, you know what? There's got to be gold in there somewheres, but I wouldn't even know how to ask for it. But it sparked that little inner child memory of like my comic book collections and things that happened there. So I thought that was good. If I knew to put it on Comic Sense, I would have. I didn't.
Yeah, you could have just posted the link there. It's cool that you remembered Hive, by the way.
Yeah. There's characters that interest me. You know, actually, another funny comic series that I feel like gets a little lost in obscurity is Aquaman. And I'm not, he's not my favorite superhero. I can't begin to pretend that. But there were some things that I liked. And, you know, it got me thinking about the environment. You know, some of my environmentalist superhero background could very well be memories of Aquaman, or thinking of, oh, gee, I wonder how does this hero really get around? But I think the character was Dark Abyss, or the Abyssal Darkness, or it was some entity that like lived in the sunken ruins of Atlantis and like was using its psychic influence to like try and make humans read some Atlantean book to like bring his spirit to possess them, which was like similar to Hive, who like, you know, had to possess a human or take their form. I think in the comics he does succeed. He gets, I think, a politician or someone to actually read and bring the Dark Abyss in there. But I'm having a hard time completely recalling much more past that. But it's something that, as a kid, kind of gave me second thoughts about politicians and, you know, what are their real intentions with the environment, and what creative problem solving Aquaman had to do, because, you know, he was kind of limited with his power. His power was great and all, but, you know, there's only so much he could do. You know, there's only so many different bad guys too he could possibly deal with. You know, I remember like pirates were a problem that like repeated a few times. Just an interesting comic book that kind of gets a little lost in the great
Aquaman. It's currently one of the best written books over at DC.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. It's about to be canceled, but DC's canceling like almost all of their books, but that's a good one. Aquaman. I mean, I don't read it, but I just know enough about that particular title and how people receive it. It's really well written right now, which is surprising.
What is it with all this canceling things?
Yeah, DC's getting rid of everything.
Wow.
They're canceled like I'm canceled, huh?
Well, I mean, you're back. They're actually getting rid of their comics
Are you
and
joking?
they're not coming back.
Really?
They're going digital.
Oh, okay. There we go. I was gonna say, I'm like, well, they can't. You know, it's a legend. You know, it's a story. But so they're going digital. So
Yeah,
hard
because
copies.
Time Warner / not Time Warner. Well, AT&T is the top dog. That's at the top of that food chain.
Okay.
But they don't even, the profit that they're making, and they do make a profit on their comics, is so marginal to them that they're like, why bother continuing to put money into this company to put out these comics where the profit for us, while there is a profit, it's just marginal. We can save the cost by going digital and just licensing our 3 major IPs, i.e. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. We'll always make money off of that. Like, they don't have, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman don't have to be comic books for people to make, for them to make millions of dollars off of those characters.
Well, yeah, those are their staples.
Yeah. So it's like, we have these IPs that are always going to be worth money. We'll just continue licensing them to different forms of media and make money that way. Because the reality is, nobody really buys Superman comics. They're not really good. People buy Batman. They just don't really buy.
I feel like that, like, Batman must be like one of the most bought comics.
Yeah, especially for DC. It's like their top selling book is Batman. That's the book that they get their. No one really buys Superman. I wish more people bought Wonder Woman, but it's just never written very well.
It's never written very well, and then you have to add in misogyny too.
What do you think?
I don't think misogyny plays a big factor when it comes to Wonder Woman in particular, or like She-Hulk.
Yeah, probably not.
Comics.
You're right.
Or women in comics, but you're not wrong, because like people rebelled against Miss Marvel specifically for that reason.
Because she's a woman?
Yeah, you had a bunch of men that didn't like the fact that Miss Marvel, who's been around since like the 70s, right? You know, when they bring her back, like, she's always been as powerful as she is, because so the history with Miss Marvel and Marvel Comics is bad.
Were these men like incels or something?
Well, so here's the problem. Marvel's history was bad when it came to Miss Marvel, really bad. Like, one of the worst stories ever written in comics is a story about Miss Marvel. And what happened was, so when they first introduced Miss Marvel to Marvel in the 70s, it was literally to appeal to little boys. They over-sexualized her. They put her in like little to nothing. Like, she'd wear the same color scheme, but like very, very short shorts. And the whole point was to make a female that was appealing to boys, to get them to buy more comics. That was literally what they did.
So basically they wanted to make something for boys to look at and think with their you-know-what-is. Right.
So her stories were very horrible. Even though her original run in comics is a brilliant run that's very expensive, because there's so many key issues in there. So many major characters appeared in her original run, but her stories weren't written very well. So what happened was, they took her and they put her in the Avengers. And again, she was eye candy. So they came up with this story that was, when I say it was horrible, this story was so bad, where she ends up getting like abducted by this almost omnipotent being who turns out to be her son. But how he turns out to be her son is, he's been imprisoned in like this parallel universe, and he seduces her, pretending he's benevolent, to get her to come there and help him get free. Well, he falls in love with her, you know what I'm saying, because he like controls her mind and seduces her into thinking she's in love with him, sleeps with her, impregnates her.
And the plot thickens.
He impregnates her so that he's not having a son. He's literally impregnating her with himself, so that when he releases her from this realm, she'll give birth to him outside of this realm. This is how bad this story was. It was so bad. It gets worse. So she gives birth to this kid who proceeds who proceeds to grow to adulthood in a matter of days, and seduces her again. Mind you, she's an Avenger, and none of the Avengers, not Captain America, none of them seem to have a problem with any of this. And like he seduces her again and gets her to leave, brainwashes her and gets her to leave, and they think everything's cool. And it's like, wait a minute. This kid just grew up in a matter of days, seduced her, brainwashed her, got her to leave, and like the Avengers just like let it happen like it was cool. And
So
it's
I have a
why.
question.
Hold on, just one second, Mike. So what happens is eventually they forget about the character, and Chris Claremont, who was kind of pissed at what they did to her, takes her and puts her in the X-Men comics. And that's when she finally started getting treated like the character she should have been getting, she should have been all along. Is when he started using her in the X-Men comics. And he went into her past about how she was a fighter pilot and did all kind of things to make her get the respect that she deserved. I'm sorry, Mike, go on. You had a question?
Treated like not as a sex symbol.
Right.
If this is a sex object,
Yeah.
or both, this character who impregnates her so that he himself can be born outside of this realm, what happens to the him that impregnated her?
It no longer is. He's like near omnipotent. So he could once he put his essence in her, he no longer existed there.
It ceases to exist.
Weird.
It was the dumb story, Mike. Like it sounds as dumb. The explanations, everything about it. It's literally called, like, if you Google the worst story ever in Marvel, that'll come up. Or the story Marvel wants you to forget, that will come up. Like every time. It's widely considered the worst story ever told. Like they should have. It was so bad. And so present day, when they bring Captain Marvel back to prominence for the whole Marvel Now movement and the whole nine, they bring this hero who, while had been over-sexualized and misportrayed for at the beginning of her run, is legitimately like one of the most powerful heroes in all of Marvel. But you have all these people in present day who didn't read Miss Marvel in the 70s. They didn't, and when she was with the X-Men, she didn't have her powers because Rogue had taken them from her. So she just was a ally of the X-Men who lived at the X-Men's mansion. And so no one remembered how powerful Captain Marvel really was. So when they brought her back, you had all these dudes who were pissed. Oh, why is she so OP? She can just beat up everybody. Who is she? Why is this woman? Da 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 da. She's always been who she was. She's always been almost the equivalent of Superman. That's always been the case. Y'all just didn't read comics in the 70s, and you didn't really pay attention to her when she was an X-Men because she didn't have her powers. Now she has her powers, and she really is that chick. It's the reason why so many guys rebelled against the Captain Marvel movie, but they didn't against the Wonder Woman movie. Because how she got, like, Captain Marvel wasn't a prominent, she didn't have her own comic in Marvel Comics till recently, till like the 2000s. So she was never a prominent character in Marvel until Marvel decided, yeah, we're going to make this super powerful girl who we did dirty throughout the majority of her comic character career. We're going to give her own comic book and recognize her for what she is, because it's like Marvel Now and representation. And we actually have this character who really is super powerful and deserves the respect that we never gave the character.
But that's not going to be, that's not, it's still going to be Brie Larson though, right? It's not going to be the Black Mother.
It's not going to be the other Captain Marvel, who you're talking about, the one I posted the other day, the black woman. No, it's still going to be Brie Larson, but she is a Captain Marvel as well. She's just a different type of. She doesn't even. They made all that up. Like that movie, like that Black Captain Marvel didn't really know the white Captain Marvel. The Black Captain Marvel is a very important character in her own right, because she was like the second leader of the Avengers after Captain America. And she was the leader of the Avengers for a long time.
All right, I'm gonna get going.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
yeah,
take off, but it's been real.
Waves is right, Waves.
Work.
Get some rest.